Shayla, you've done a very good job of looking after the barflies over summer. Thank you so much. Looking forward to getting back behind the bar myself, though. Have you got the keys?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Roy. I don't have the keys.
You don't have the keys?
Sorry to interrupt, vPub, but is anybody looking for a pair of keys for the vPub? Because someone's dropped them in the bothy.
Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to the vPub. It's been a wonderful summer for me. I hope it's been a good summer for you too. Of course, I've missed you all. I've missed every single one of you, and I'm very much looking forward to getting back into the swing of things tonight with a bit of a bang. Obviously, you saw in the intro there who our esteemed guest is tonight. El Jefe, the gaffer, the boss, the original online career whiskey tuber. I'm very grateful to have him joining us as well. Ralfy will be helping me go through the topic tonight. I'll talk about that in a wee minute. And if you hang about for long enough, we're also going to get onto a topic a wee bit later as well that will involve a little bit of an announcement that we've been working on a project together over the summer. And we feel it's kind of ready now for public consumption. It's out there and we've started actioning it already. So we want to share that with you as well, but that'll be a wee bit later in the show. First, we're going to talk about some interesting whiskies, the concept of regions in Scotch whisky, and hang out with some beautiful whisky folk and dedicated barflies who have missed very, very much. I've missed a dram from somebody already. Let's see who that's from. Thank you so much. I'll grab it before it disappears. Looks like it came in a while ago. It was Bill Monteith, my friend Bill. Listen to the sound of those corks popping. How I love opening day. Catch you all on the replay. Cheers. Bill, thank you so much for your message. Thank you very much for your virtual dram, my friend. And it's nice to have had you drop in to say hello to us. I hope you do enjoy it on the replay, my friend. Good to see you, Bill. And of course, Jimmy Legg has bought me a wee dram as well. Jimmy, I've missed you over the summer, buddy. I hope you're keeping very well. I hope Angela is too. Jimmy Legg bought me a dram and saying, I'm so happy right now. Whiskey for everyone. Jimmy and Bill, it's nice to welcome you back, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Cheers to you both. Having a tasty, delicious, wee, fruity Lowlander to start. Let's see who's in this evening. There's already well over 300 of you in. It's going to be very, very difficult to get through the chat tonight, but I'll do my very, very best to welcome as many of you as I can just as we go through the session tonight. Remember, if you're picking this up on the replay, I'm very, very grateful to you all. Thank you so much. And if I've done my homework, if I've stayed up late enough tonight to leave some chapter markers and things below for you to help navigate, if you're watching the replay, you'll find them in the description box below. Thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat. Max in Austria, good to see you, Max. Always wonderful to see you, Marcus Kreitner. Whiskey Novice, that's Jim Ingram in Ireland. Fantastic, Jim. Good to see you, buddy. Jerry Miller, JB, Reb Mordecai in Israel. Jeff Whiskey down south. Watchman 999, good to see you, Star. Luna Aaron, Greg's Whiskey Guide. Alan, the Whiskey Friend. Curtis Campbell. Graham Young. Knur Connoisseur. Ebhead. Rolf in Norway. Mark Slinger up in Speyside. Mark, fantastic. Good to see you. Molasses is here. Jean Delacuisine. Gino Cumo in Canada. Matt Whiskey Games Bishop. I've got his dominoes down at my feet here. A fantastic set of handmade dominoes from Whiskey Staves. Wonderful they are too, Matt. I'm very glad I picked a set of those up. Bruno Martins. Orange Wool. Black Fen is in. He's partly responsible for the topic tonight. I'll explain in a second. Doropass Whiskey, Greg's Whiskey Guy, Desi Leland, Bruno Martins. I'm starting to duplicate names now. Jason McDonald, Radek, Styscal, Radek and Jason, fantastic. Daniel Gray, Helen and Andy down south as well. So many of you. Wonderful to welcome you all back behind the bar for a bit of whiskey time. Highland Hamish has bought me a dram as well. Don't want to miss that, Hamish. He's saying, welcome back to the Whiskey Hot Seat, Roy. Slancha to all from Inverness. How do you know it's particularly warm in here tonight? It's been quite a balmy day in Glasgow, a balmy couple of days. Starting to cool down a wee bit now, but the room is really still quite warm. It's fine though. Daniel Williams has bought me a dram as well. Because I can't buy everyone a drink, I'll buy you a decent dram, Roy. Slancher. So Daniel, thank you so much, my friend. And Highland Hamish, slancher to you as well. Thanks for your drams. Lots have been happening over the summer. But I have to say that I managed to take a good break from whiskey. I wasn't drinking too much whiskey over the summer, just occasional sessions with friends and things. For the most part was spent with this studio move. I know it looks very, very similar to you. If I've done well, it should look the same. Right behind me here, the wall is painted the same, but I'm in a completely new room, and it's the first time that all my whiskey has been in the same spot. And I'm very happy to be here and sitting in it. On Sunday night, I maybe should be able to pull together a Patreon lock-in, and I'll give you a wee tour if I manage that. If it's not this Sunday, it'll be a week on Sunday. But I'm very happy to be in this room. All my whiskies are here, and if I keep it organised the way it is right now, I can reach out and grab any whiskey that I want to, which was very, very useful for tonight's exercise. I hope you have all had a good summer as well. I hope you managed to enjoy some nice summer whiskies, and I hope you're ready to start easing gently back into summer season with Ralfy and I tonight, perhaps. Tonight's topic is an interesting one. Regions in Scotch whisky. It's a little bit kind of, I heard it described recently as bunkum, and I get that. The idea that there's a regional style is a little bit of nonsense in the modern landscape. We can have peated Speysiders and heavily peated Highlanders and unpeated, sweet, fruity Islay whiskies. So that idea of regionality or regional styles in Scotch whisky, if we go down that route, it's a dangerous one that we have to talk about lots and lots of caveats and exceptions and outliers. But I still think I like them. I like them a lot. And I've come to realize that the reason I like them is because it helped me when I was coming into the dizzying variation available to us in Scotch whisky. It helped me break it down into chunks and start to understand things. What was Speyside? What did it mean? The Highlands is a massive, massive area. But a Highland whisky, what did that mean to most people? Western Highlands, Islands, an Islay, a Campbeltown, a Lowland. This whole breakdown, this regional thing, helped me a lot. And it made me realize that anybody coming into whiskey for the first time could benefit out of that. Oh my goodness, lots of drams coming in. I need to catch these before they disappear. Thank you all so much. I've got one here from Billy Saunders down in Nottingham. Welcome back, bud. You've been missed. I can imagine the sound of all the corks being popped by barflies tonight. Fantastic. So good to have you in, Billy, and I hope things are going great down at Nottingham Whisky Association. I believe that you're in rude health down there. Whisky Novice is saying, great to have you back, buddy. Shayla did a great job too. Slancher. That's Jim Ingram, Whisky Novice channel, YouTuber as well over there in Northern Ireland, and a friend of mine too. Jim, wonderful to have you in, and thank you for the dram. Time for a dram, Gregor, another friend of mine over in Portland, Oregon. Some money for a new mic. Your audio is a bit off, Roy. Let's see if we can do anything about that. Thank you, Gregor. I hope we have just improved the audio. Things are a wee bit upturned and upset. I never spotted that, Gregor. That should be a wee bit better. I should have done a test transmission, but I didn't have time. Jimmy Jazz is saying, my turn to buy the next round for you, Neil, and Scott Monroe on Tuesday at the Bon. Find something different. Wow, Jimmy Jazz, what a dram you've bought for us here. Going to finish this wee special whiskey here and raise a glass to you to say thank you so much, my friend Jimmy Jazz over in the States. Yes, the next Glasgow Whisky Club meet is the first time that everybody's got together in the same space since before the lockdown, so it's quite a big deal. We're all a wee bit apprehensive, but very much looking forward to it. And it'll be nice to get in the same space with some people again. But Jimmy Jazz, Billy Saunders, my friend Gregor and Jim, thank you all very much for your very generous drams. Cheers, Jimmy Jazz. Thank you. Finished my dram already. I need to get something else poured quickly. So what I thought would be a good idea Blackfair on Twitter asked for help on Twitter to say, you know, Roy, can you help me evangelize my friend into whiskey? What would you suggest that might be a good introduction lineup for him? Well, there's something I used to do years ago, and it was based on the regions. And there was a Lowlander in the lineup. At that time, it would have been a Glenkinchie 12. Maybe an Auchentoshan would have been in the lineup. There would have been a Campbeltown in there, probably a Springbank. There would have been a Highlander, a Speyside, and an Islay. And we would have kind of done this thing called the Whisky Steps. And it would have given me an idea, an opportunity to talk about cask maturation, sherry versus bourbon, talk about styles of whiskey, talk about peating levels, talk about all of the wonderful things that Scotch whisky has, all the variation that exists there, but break it down into very, very contrastable things so that they can pick up any two glasses, sit them side by side each other, and clearly taste, even a brand new beginner, differences, so that they know that there's something in it, that there's different flavours to be explored. Now, of course, you have to have a mind on ABV. If people are not used to drinking spirits, you have to be careful. However, I found it very, very successful. I evangelized all my friends into whiskey eventually. So I thought that would be a good thing to do for the beginner session. We've done beginner sessions before. So with friends' request, we've made it into a regional thing. Beginner whiskey, invited that Ralfy to discuss that this evening. What would he offer? What would he put on the table to bring a friend in? And I think that's going to be interesting. It's not just the fact we pick whiskey. I think what's going to be interesting is how Ralfy interprets a classic style Highland ale with Speyside ABV versus me. Oh wow, the mic is buzzing. Give me a second. If that's the case, I may need to go with the internal mic. Why am I getting a problem with the mic tonight? Sound like flies flying. I'm so sorry for the audio issues. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what caused that. Hopefully, the audio is going to be a bit tinny, but hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully it's okay. This sounds fine, Molasses is saying. Yeah. You know, the last time that Ralfy was live with me, we had a huge technical problem as well. And I didn't know what was going wrong that time either. Perhaps it's the Ralfy effect. Listen, as long as you can hear me, that should be okay. Anyway, without further ado, I think we should just, as long as you can hear me, it seems to be okay now. People are saying, yep, no buzzing anymore. It might just be a wee bit tinnier than normal. I'll need to work out what the issue is with the audio. Maybe need to invest in a new mic. Wonderful stuff. I hope that that's okay for you all. Let's reach out to my guest now. Let's discuss a wee bit what we're going to be sharing with you tonight. I'm excited about lots of it. And see how he interprets the regions in Scotch whisky. Ralfy, give me a thumbs up if you're ready, my friend. Ralfy.
Just to let you know, by the way, Roy, that what you're experiencing with your microphone is called a blooper. It happens all the time in the bothy. There's bloopers here, there, and everywhere. It happened when I was over visiting you. It's happening now, right, on this live stream. And by the way, make a date in your diary. So as you're forewarned, the next time we connect in this channel, it's going to happen again. Something will happen.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Exactly. I remember the last time everything was set up, we pressed the go live button and the button grayed out and it would not go live. And I had to close everything down, start it up again. I had to set a new stream and everything. And you were just kind of sitting back, enjoying your drama and just kind of watching me panicking.
Yeah, there's no stress in me, mate. It was your problem. So I left it with you. Who am I to interfere with the host?
Listen, Ralfy, it's amazing to welcome you behind the bar. I know that I was thinking about it the other day, that it was over 2 years ago that you and I were together. and we did that stream to celebrate your 10 years. Time goes fast, it really does.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I know it has to be virtual tonight, but that's okay. We'll have opportunities in the future, I'm sure, no spoilers, for us to get together behind this camera and for future events. It's nice that you now have broadband running to the bothy. It's wonderful to see you in the bothy.
Technology has finally caught up with the back of beyond, courtesy of a very long extension cable running from the furthest point of remote wireless connectivity, finally reaching the bothy. This, in fact, is the first live stream, non-recorded. It's the first live stream from the bothy ever.
Fantastic. I'm very glad that it's on this channel. It's wonderful to have you. And that extension cable that you're talking about, it's not just going from your house, that's going all the way out to somewhere in the Irish Sea.
Basically, yes. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm just using you and the Aquavit channel to give it a nice kind of dummy run, so to speak, to see it's actually going to work and kind of hold the quality before I do something one-to-one with my Patreon pals later in the year. There you go.
That would be an amazing treat to have a hangout with you live. That would be really, really cool.
It's planned.
Yes, it's working nice. You're looking well. We can hear you nice and clearly. That's the most important thing. I know the audio was terrible there on the intro. I don't know what was going on. I'll probably hear it on the replay and cringe. It's all audio is always the thing that catches you out. But you hopefully heard enough to work out that what I was talking about, the concept, that idea that we still rely on regions a wee bit. We think about classic Speysiders maybe, or classic Highlanders. I know in my mind I have what a classic Highlander would be, a classic Islay, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's much, Ralfy, much validity in regions in Scotch whisky today?
Yes. It's worth starting at the beginning here, Roy. How did the whisky regions first come about? And this was basically at the beginning of the 20th century, when blenders had to basically look at the array of single malts in front of them and categorize them into their effect and influence on a blended whisky. So they'd basically have a map up in the blending room wall of Scotland, and they basically put an X on the map where they were getting, where the distilleries were that they were getting whisky from, and say basically, right, when we're down south of Scotland, we're going to get a lighter style that's a little bit more complex in the finish, whereas the Highlands style is going to be rich, fruitier, more dried fruits, more spice, slightly different form, and the Speyside will be sweeter. It will be more sort of cereal notes. Then you've got your Island, your Islay, and then, of course, Campbeltown gets its own wee designation all to itself, really thanks to the reputation of Springbank, which has been an amazing anomaly in Scotch whisky, which has survived the indifference of many previous decades and is now so important as a benchmark for any new upcoming distilleries who want to get their feet before they launch their product. So that the blenders would basically pre-blend. You're not basically putting all the separate malts into one pot when you're blending. You're pre-blending, so as you would get the pre-blend right before you then put your pre-blends together. So you've got your pre-blended grain whiskey, which is making up the bulk of the old school blends, particularly the younger ones. Then they pre-blend the Speyside region whiskies to get the character, the identity that we're looking for. And then they do the same with the Highland. And then if they wanted something that's going to sell a bit more in the winter time, they'd add a wee splash of something from Islay.
I think it is interesting, and I think it's often when you're trying to get the concept of Scotch across to people, it's difficult not to go back to that history of blending, right? I mean, that's the structure of our industry here in Scotland is built. I mean, traditionally, it's changing now in the modern times, but it's built to supply blenders with a consistent product that was basically a component of a recipe, exactly as you're speaking about. This would have given rise to the Glenlivet region that it was known way before it was ever called Speyside, and a specific style of Glenlivet whiskey and what it was valued for, what it was known for. And as the big blending companies built their distilleries or took distilleries on board, they were able to dial in a profile and keep that consistent profile made at that distillery. So, and that's where we got this house style, this house character that we talk about today, or distillery style.
And an important addition to what you're saying, which I'm going to mention, I'm just butting in, Roy, by the way, you know what happens, but it's worth mentioning that it was so much simpler in the old days because the house style didn't have much permutations. Distilleries basically produced the same relatively consistent product because that's what the identity of the distillery was based on. It's much more complex these days because take Benriach, for example, very chameleon malt. You can get within that one distillery, you get the double distilled, triple distilled, you get a soft style, hard style, peated style. So for the modern whiskey drinker, when you look at not just 140, 150 distilleries now in and around Scotland and counting, but when you look at within these distilleries, you get so many permutations depending in which direction they choose to go. It's a very bewildering choice. And we really use the regions by default as a way of starting to narrow down the style of whiskey that we feel suits our palate, particularly as we're learning.
That's true. That's true. And I think that it's one of the things that makes this regional thing a wee bit of bunkum, right enough, a wee bit of nonsense, is the fact that you mentioned Benriach, we've got Benromac making double distilled and triple distilled and peated and unpeated, and we've got Springbank making the exact same double, triple, peated, unpeated, somewhere in between. And that's happening in the regions all over, Bunnahabhain, Islay, and everywhere. Ailsa Bay in the Lowlands, they can make any whiskey they like. Roseisle, up right in the very, very northeast of the country there, they can make pretty much any whiskey they like. However, for the purposes of our discussion tonight, do you think, in my head, and I don't know if you would agree, I have an idea what I believe is a classic style for each of the 5 regions. And tonight I know we're going to explore 6 because we've separated out the islands, and I think maybe that's valid. I hope it's valid. Would you agree? Do you have a kind of classic profile in your head despite all of this variation that we see in the modern day?
Right. Well, spoilers for all the folk in the vPub, but you and I briefly discussed this earlier for the simple reason we've got our own personal opinions, but we wanted to give us some diversity and demonstrate some diversity between us. So we were making sure that we weren't presenting the same whiskies. And in fact, we made it more interesting because you're going to present some classical, easily identified ambassadors for regional whiskey styles, whereas I'm going to be much more personalized, and between the regions, I'm going to offer a real diversity between official bottlings, independent bottlings, and probably bottlings that are not typical of the style of the region, but in the modern whiskey scape, they're well aware of.
That's what I hoped you would do. This allows you to flex a little, Ralfy. It allows you to go, we have talked about this, but we have not conferred. We don't know what each other's bottles are, and we don't know what each other's interpretations of the regions are. That's for tonight's discussion, to keep it fresh. I want to jump in, and Connor Connoisseurs bought me a dram, said, ahoy, Roy, ahoy, Ralfy. Always lovely to see you here. I'll raise a dram of really tasty stuff from the one and only fantastic region called Scotland. Superb to have you in, my friend. Great to have you. Is it Vince? I feel like it's Vince. Chris Witham is in saying Ardnamurchan tastes like Leitchik. Is this because they're close to each other? And is location more important than region? I have never drawn the comparison before, Chris. That is interesting. I'm enjoying Ardnamurchan though. And I do enjoy Leitchik, as everybody knows, modern Leitchik. Fantastic, Chris. Thank you very much for your dram. We're going to very, very interestingly, in September, I think it's scheduled for September 16th, I'll be broadcasting, all things going well, from Ardnamurchan. And Chris, exactly what we'll be discussing is location versus whiskey. So watch out for more to that in the future. So that, yes, we did discuss. What I have chosen is I have chosen a lineup, not of whiskies I would recommend, not of whiskies you can easily buy, but perhaps something that I would put on the table in order to help me illustrate and define to a beginner what is representative of that style. My friend Bill in California has bought me a very generous dram. Let's get Roy's travel to the Isle of Man fund going. I'll raise a glass to that, Bill. Ralfy, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Lowlands?
Right. First of all, we'll start with by just clearly identifying the 6 regions, because when you go online to do your research, you often see there's 5 regions mentioned. Islands as a region gets missed out because Islay is an island.
Well, yeah, and I know that the SWA definitions don't make that separation from the mainland Highlands and the islands.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Yeah.
Just personal preference makes it easy for me. I like the idea that, especially in the modern times, thanks to Harris and Lewis, we've got Avanjaric and Isla Harris up there. You've got on the Outer Hebrides, you've got Orkney, you've got Arran, you've got Jura, and Tobermory. Lots of these are newer distilleries or revived distilleries. So in the modern era, we've got a real case for the islands having their own region. But as it stands, we know that that's woven into the Highlands. But as you're saying, we're counting that separate tonight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, the faithful will be incensed that you haven't mentioned Rassi yet.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking about.
I just thought I'd throw that in there, so as you know.
I was racking my brain that the wee one just north of Skye. That's right. Fantastic. So, the 6 regions we're talking about: Lowland, we're talking about Speyside, Campbeltown, Highlands, Islands, and Islay.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to present them in a very specific order, because if you start with Islay, a whiskey from Islay, as your first dram, every other region will taste like Islay.
So with that, is it your recommendation we start at Lowlands then?
Yes, yeah, okay.
The first thing I'm going to do is
when you get around to letting me have a dram, Roy.
Aye, sorry, I'm holding you up. Listen, I think what we should do is take a wee turn, a shot each at going first.
Okay.
6 regions, that'll take 3 each, and define what we think the area, the region, what represents a classic style. Do you want me to take Lowlands, or would you happy to go with Lowlands?
Oh, let me run with it, Roy. Will you?
Go for it.
Let me run.
Tell me about the Lowlands.
Now, here's my ambassador for the Lowlands. Hang on, that's better. Okay. I'm mentioning the 11-year-old contemporary version of Bladnoch for the reason that anybody that's bought Daft Mill has not opened it, apart from very, very few. St. Magdalene is virtually impossible to find, either in St. Magdalene and Lithgow guys. You've also got Rosebank, which is extortionately expensive, and now people don't want to open the bottles they bought back in the 1990s, just in case they're able to pay the mortgage off with them in the next 5 years. Yeah. So we're looking at Glenkinchie, Auchentoshan, or Bladnoch. Now, there are other lowland distilleries in the pipeline, and goodness knows you've got your distilleries in the Kingdom of Fife, so that they're included in the lowland style. But Kingsbarn, I've not really, I'm biding my time with Kingsbarn. I've enjoyed it. It's a very clean made spirit, but there's not a lot of it out there. It's a very small distillery, so I'm letting it settle down before I really get more into it and start featuring it more.
And is that something you'd be looking for in a lowlander then, that clean style?
No. And this is why I'm choosing Bladnoch, because Bladnoch is actually a surprisingly chameleon whiskey. I've tasted peated Bladnoch, young peated Bladnoch, and it's very, I would describe it as mezcal-like. It's very interesting. Not a lot of it. In the recent old days, I mean, Bladnoch was one of these distilleries where, when I was just a small pesky anorak banging indoors, Bladnoch really made me welcome in a way that other distilleries didn't. And that was really down to Raymond Armstrong, the proprietor at the time. And I really liked the way that he had absolutely no experience in the Scotch whisky industry. He was completely winging it. And in fact, it's through that man's stubborn Irish nature that he stopped Rosebank from going under. And literally, that man sat down with the Diageo team and single-handedly persuaded them to let him keep producing whiskey at that distillery. Now, for those who have got a bit of time with Bladnoch, you may remember the Flora and Fauna bottlings, which were kind of oranges and lemons style, fairly pleasant, but not particularly dynamic lowland representative. And that was the bottling of whiskey that really relegated where's again? Yeah, Bladnoch.
You did mention Rosebank there at one point, but I know you were talking about Bladnoch. He had a fight in his hands because he was trying to fight with Diageo to be able to continue making whiskey at Bladnoch, because Diageo, when they sold it, they wanted anything to happen to it, but it was not allowed to continue making whiskey. And he managed to win that fight eventually, and it's thanks to Raymond Armstrong, absolutely, that we've still got Bladnoch there as a distillery. You're spot on.
They were quite keen that he convert the distillery into residential flats, like happened with Little Mill.
Yes, unfortunately. And Linlithgow at St Magdalene. Yeah. Daniel Caballero's bought me a dram as well. Daniel, I don't want to miss that. I happen to agree 100% with Charlie McLean on his Whisky Regions, Are They Still Relevant article in Malt Whisky 2020, the Malt Whisky Yearbook. Cheers from Colombia to you both. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much for your generous dram, my friend. Wonderful to have you in. And there's a lot of great advice come from Charlie McLean in the past. I would have definitely read that article. That would have been just over a year ago, that 2020 article. Maybe I should have read it ahead of tonight. And I've also had a virtual dram bought for me by Mike Bennett saying, cheers from New Hampshire, USA, and Ralfy. I opened my Daft Mill. Cheers, Mike. Cheers to you. I've got an open Daft Mill here as well as we talk about the Lowland style. For me, you mentioned Rosebank and St Magdalene. I think they're probably up there in terms of what we would maybe consider a typical Lowlander. That quite light, slightly floral, grassy, malty, delicate, often triple distilled, yes, just a lighter, more ethereal type spirit. And I think it's interesting. The reason that I would put this on the table, even if it was for a beginner, is because I know, and you probably know as well, that when Francis started making up there in Fife, he wanted to make a typical Lowland whiskey. That was his desire, to make a Lowland style whiskey. This is his. I think this is quite weighty and full bodied. This particular bottling. This is the 2008 summer batch release. There's quite a nice body to this. It's very fruity. It's very fermentation driven. There's lots of fruit in here. There's a yeasty side to it too. It's farmy even. I know it's a farm distillery. I'm getting all of that. So I would probably put this lovely lightly spiced dram down there. But of course, nobody can buy it. I tell you, Ralfy, I encourage you to try this. Now, I know it's not an age statement. You said you haven't connected with Kingsbarns yet. But I have been impressed. I've got a single cask over there that was nice, but it was young and spirity. It's starting to taste mature now. Still young spirit, but 2014, there theoretically could be 6 or 7 year old whiskey in here now. They've been around for a few more years. This is tasting nice. I've only had this out the bottle so far. I'll reserve judgment until I'm a wee bit further down. But you can't buy Daft Mill.
No,
so
yeah.
There are Lowlanders out there that you can buy. This is
Absolutely.
a richer thing, slightly more powerful, slightly more flavoured than the Daft Mill.
And
yeah.
when Lowland whiskey is presented properly, which is why I'm mentioning Bladnoch, because they're not chill filtering and they're bottling at higher strength, which is something that Auchentoshan needs, but Auchentoshan lacks often, because some single cask bottlings from the distillery are superb. Because the wonderful thing about the often overlooked Lowland region is what you mentioned, the light and ethereal, and then within a few minutes you mention substantial, and this is the great dichotomy with Lowland.
Rosebank was exactly that, right?
Yeah. It is superficially, on first contact, it seems a light, more ethereal style of whiskey, but when you get into it, you discover this amazing complexity, which is why old bottles of, whether it be St. Magdalen or Auchentoshan, or even, I mean, we see so little from Glenkinchie because most of it goes into the blends. It is the Lowland representative in the malt filler.
Classic malts, that's right.
Yeah, many blends.
And I think they're not as criminal as Auchentoshan in their standard core range presentation, but they could do it a wee bit better. The 43%. The Auchentoshans, the entry-level Auchentoshans are out there at 40%, and it means that, yeah, you're right. It is a wee bit diluted and soft. Maybe for a beginner, you could argue that it's okay. It's worthy. I mean, that's exactly what those whiskies are often pointed at: the drinker, beginner, rather than the enthusiast. I get it, but for me, it's been a long time since I've had an official Auchentoshan in the collection, and that says a lot. Unfortunately, for a distillery that we both know makes great whiskey, it's what makes it into the bottle that isn't always fantastic for an enthusiast. Doc McAllen and Rare in Germany has asked for my thoughts on Lindor's Abbey. I'll put that to you as well, Ralfy. And Connor Connoisseur has said, off topic of Lowland, just opened a pack of samples from Annandale. Very crisp, apples, vanilla, effervescent, almost like champagne. Another worthy contender. Unfortunately, Annandale, I think that it's quite expensive, and the ABV is very, very high. There's no way you could put a Man of Sword or a Man of Words on the table in front of a beginner at 60+%. ABV is the biggest barrier of entry, I think. And if you're trying to get somebody into whiskey, I think maybe one of the worst things you could do is hit them with something of that strength and really anesthetize their palate, have them thinking all they can taste is chilly heat and things like that. But Connor, thanks for your virtual dram. The Lindor's Abbey, for me, Ralfy, I've not tried it yet. I've got a bottle here, but it's not opened. Have you tried Lindor's yet?
I've tried the New Make Spirit. They recently had their inaugural release, and presented in a very attractive gin bottle. And I'm certainly, it's a very small distillery I keep an eye on, because when you taste the New Make Spirit, you're seeing something with a lot of potential. It's got a natural complexity, and it's a little bit rough around the edges as a New Make Spirit. It's got a little bit of beefiness to it. And if they've got the right assortment of casks, and get the balance right between using refill casks, rinsed casks, and fresh casks, then I think that for such a small distillery, they need to consolidate their identity through the singularity of the flavour. So it's got to have a take like Mortlach. It's got to taste like nothing else.
It's funny with the way you were discussing that, the way you were talking about it, and our mutual friend Roddy, the Barflies, and the whiskey Roddy very well. He has a belief that sometimes it's the most characterful or the most challenging new make that makes the best whiskey. And when you started to talk about that, one of the things that popped into my head was Mortlach. So there we go. I would agree with you on that Bladnoch, Ralfy. I think it's a good shout. I have that bottle. I absolutely love it. Love it. It's very, very delicious, very fruity. And it's a good choice. I think that the 11-year-old is still available. Some people further afield might even still get the 10-year-old, which was also pretty excellent. Whiskey Central has bought me a dram to say, cheers, Barflies, Malt Mix, and Gainers. My two favourite whiskey tubers on one screen. Yay, slant you, Ralfy and Roy. Now, you heard Shayla's voice earlier on, and I forgot that I was going to bring her in and say thank you. Will we thank her together, Ralfy? Can we do that just now?
Let's go for it.
Shayla, give me a wee thumbs up if you're good to come in. Shayla, Whiskey Central, thank you so much for this year. And sorry I was going to bring you in before Ralfy came on, but I think it's better that I bring you in when Ralfy's here, because I know Ralfy tuned in a couple of times too. Listen, for the first time this year, all over summer, the Barflies and the Whiskey folk had another place to go while I went dark for a few weeks, and Whiskey Central, Shayla, hosted the vPub on a Thursday night. And I want to say I did tune in a couple of times, sometimes on headphones as I was busy, sometimes as I was distracted with the family and everything. I did partake in the quiz. I need to make amends for the quiz tonight. I tried really hard to make an easier quiz tonight because I was brutalised on your quizzes.
Yeah, I think I made them a little too difficult.
I did better on Menno's quiz when he was on yours than I did on your own one.
Yeah, I think I would have too.
I'll let you off, Shayla, because it shows that you're one of the most studious of the channels that we have out there. You're passionate about the subject, you're educating yourself, you're studying it, and that comes across in the content. It came across in the vPubs as well, and I would like to raise this wee glass to say thank you so much for looking after the Barflies over summer.
Actually, I don't have anything for it. Hold on one sec. It's bad luck to toast to an empty dram, so
I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation style, Shayla, and I did not partake of doing your quiz because I didn't want to give myself a dizzy turn, to be honest.
Oh, thank you, Ralfy. It means a lot coming from both of you guys, obviously, so amazing.
Cheers.
All right, Slanja.
Did you find it okay? Do you think it's something that you'd be happy to do again, or did you find it difficult or fun? Or you do live streams every Saturday as well, right?
Yeah.
It was quite a big strain on the workload.
It was a little bit, yeah. I think so. I'm going on vacation in like 3 weeks. So I'm also making 2 videos a week. Normally I just do 1. So I was doing 2 videos and 2 live streams. So I got a little bit burnt out, but I think it was a wonderful experience and I totally would do it again. But probably not. I probably wouldn't schedule a vacation for right after it though, if I could go back. But no, it was fantastic. And the community is so supportive and wonderful. So I had a great time and thank you for allowing me to do it. It was just a treat. No,
honestly, it was my privilege. As soon as you reached out to me, I thought, that's just too good an idea. It's just too good an idea. Shayla, I've had you on the vPub loads of times. It's always a pleasure to have you here. It's nice of you to come along and light things up a wee bit, and I hope that more in the future as well.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't mind, though,
yeah.
If you'd be watching anyway, stay in the background, and I'll bring you back in for the quiz, and I'll get my own back on for what you did to me.
Okay, there we go. That's great.
Yeah, well done. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks, Roy. Cheers, Ralfy. Cheers, Roy. Thank you.
Wonderful stuff. I think Shayla's up for doing more of that again. It means that I can relax and take more holidays in the future. No pressure, Shayla. It's completely up to you. I missed a couple of drams here. I'm going to grab these quickly. Jamie Brown, great to have you back, Roy. As a lover of Lowlanders, I find the new Lindors is a good mix of a young classical Lowland and new style whiskey. I get what you're saying, Jamie. I understand the concept of what you're saying. I've yet to try the Lindors. I've tried a couple of things from Lindors, but not their inaugural release. John Drinks is in as well. Good to see you, John. Good to have you here. Powerhouse return here. I'm still floored the difference between official bottling and independent bottlings of Auchentoshan. I get you completely. I'm absolutely with you there, and he's agreeing a different planet. Try the exact same with standard Lafroig. and higher ABV releases from Lefroy get 48%. Look at the official range from Bowmore as well, 40%, 40%. It's one of the most legendary distilleries that we have in the entire Scotch category, and it's out there at 40%. It could do so much better. Loy Pinheiro, that looks like a new name, Loy. Nice to have you in here. East St. Slaggy from Dubai, gents. I have a soft spot for Bladnoch, as does Ralfy. I like it too myself. There's a fresh pineapple, key lime pie, and coconut quality to the spirit I really enjoy. Thank you very much for your dram. Dribs and Drams is saying, I just got proper 12. It's a pile of crap disguised as a bottle of whiskey. But I just snagged one of the last two Bruichladdich Islay Malt 2010 in Quebec. Good for you, Dribs and Drams, and I agree with you on the proper 12. It's okay if you're throwing in some ginger ale or something. I wouldn't recommend it as a sipping whiskey. And Whiskey 101, Nick has said, Sheila did us all proud. So great support through the summer, especially for those of us who couldn't get away. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you all for your virtual drams. Thanks to you, Nick. Thanks to everybody else. Cheers. Ralfy, let's move on the regions a wee bit.
Right, so
where can we go next? Where we do
Island.
Straight over to the islands, shall we?
Islands, yeah. From Lowlands to Islands to Highlands and then Speyside. From Speyside to Campbeltown and then up to Islay.
So the crescendo is Islay. Fine, I'll take the islands.
Circle here.
I'll take that. Now the islands is going to give me an excuse to uncork a bottle, okay? But I'm not going to uncork the one that I would be pouring for a beginner. Let me explain. I think the quintessential bottle that you would put on the table to illustrate what I believe the islands represent is this bottle I've got in my hands right now. For me, the islands bring a slightly, and I know I'm going to just march out lots of tropes here, but it's true. A slightly rugged edge to the style, we're looking for salinity. We're looking for a bit of spice. We're looking for a sprinkling of peat, perhaps, on the islands. We're looking for something that kind of grabs your attention, something that you would take in a hip flask as you walk or on a hike or something on a cold day. The island whiskies, to me, are a little bit robust and a little bit kind of salt and pepper. And anybody who's heard me discuss the whiskey I've got in my hands right now probably knows exactly what I'm going to talk about. Jimmy Legge saying it better not be Highland Park. Well, why not Highland Park? Why not? But it isn't, Jimmy. This is Talisker 10. And I think that salinity is here. That slightly jagged edge to it is here. It's a full-bodied whiskey. It's quite a bruiser for an island whiskey. It's salt and pepper on the finish, especially. I think it's a perfect thing to put alongside something that's softer and sweeter to help highlight the fruit in the Talisker and also that salinity, salt and pepper thing. However, the one I'm going to drink tonight is the one I would recommend everybody buys. It's less of all the things I've just spoken about and just a damn good island whiskey. And I believe, Ralfy, this is your whiskey of the year.
Yes.
Now, we did not confer.
We did not confer.
We did not.
I wanted just to take this opportunity as an island whiskey that is my whiskey of the year, and it's a perfect ambassador for the contemporary style of bottling for what I would call a customer rather than a consumer. And I think it's worth the industry sitting up and paying a bit more attention to the growing army of international anoraks and informed, high-spending customers, because anybody that comes to the vPub is more than a consumer. Simple as that. A whiskey at 46%, unchill filtered and natural colour. More of a novelty 10 years ago, but now people can tangibly see the addition in calibre of smell and taste that you get in this style of presentation. And Arran have taken to this like a duck to water, and now they're reaping the rewards of it. Furthermore, it's an affordable, available whiskey.
Yeah, and look at those statements on the label. big, bold letters. They're actually leading with it. Non-chill filtered, natural colour. Age statement 46% ABV. I just threw away an empty of this in a recycled review, and I gave it a 9 out of 10 for a 10-year-old product that you can buy for £35. I agree with you fully. I think it's a magical whiskey of the year to nominate. And I think that this is a little bit softer and more approachable than the island style I was speaking about. How about you? Would you suggest that this is representative of your idea of the islands, or just a bloody good whiskey?
You're going to love this, Roy. This will get the anoraks buzzing. The island region is full of regions.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You've got your northern region of Orkney, Shetland. You've got your northwest region of Lewis and Skye and Harris. Then you've got your middle region of Jura, right? And then you've got your southern region. Well, sorry, you've got Rassay. Mustn't forget Rassay. That's part of your southern, northern, west coast island region. Then you've got your southern, middle region of Jura. Then you've got your southern region of Arran and Bute. I'm sure there's a, I hope I'm not giving anything away, but if we see
it. Yeah, are you predicting an explosion of island distilleries across the future, right? I think you're right, and it's interesting because what we're talking about there is that there's a natural border in the sea being put between these different regions. And that's one of the things that we're going to explore when I go up to Ardnamurchan and we broadcast from there and ask them outright. You know, the style of the whiskey that you're producing, did you try to design that, or is the whiskey somehow just taking care of itself? And the different regions, as you're talking about in the islands, Ralfy, from the north through the south, all the various islands. We're not talking about terroir here. We're not talking about the barley being grown from the earth and things. We're talking about where the whiskey is produced and how much of that microclimate or local climate has an influence. Of course, it depends on where the whiskey's been matured and things as well. How much of that has an influence on the whiskey? Sometimes I get saltiness in Arran, but not tonight.
It's worth noting that there's another way to look at the island regions, because all the islands are down the west coast, the north coast down the west coast, all of them. And that is to look at them from the sea rather than from the land. Because historically, you had the Sea Kingdom on the west of Scotland based on Islay.
Lord of the Isles, yeah.
Lord of the Isles.
Yep,
Lord of the Isles was basically a king. He was autonomous and a force to be reckoned with, because treacherous waters off the west of Scotland, very hard to navigate, and only, really experienced sailors could survive that passage, particularly if they hadn't paid their pass money to the Lord of the Isles. So when you look at the region of the islands from the sea, you will see Ardnamurchan, you will see Skye, and I would suggest Ardnamurchan and Talisker, on Skye, and Rassay are in fact closer to island region whiskies than Highland whiskies. Same with Ben Nevis, and the same with, let me see, another west. Well, you could even say the same for Bladnoch, because Bladnoch is an Irish Sea bordering distillery.
Did you mention Oban there?
Oban, no, I didn't mention Oban. Could I mention Oban very easily? To be honest, at the moment, I think Oban's style and identity is lost in the corporate mechanism. I think that if Oban was reinvented as a craft, as an autonomous independent distillery, you would see a dramatic shift and a successful shift in the style of flavour and substance. I think that, in fact,
especially as it's one of those distilleries that they can't expand to do that. It's only ever going to be the size that it is. It's never going to be able to produce much more. Shayla's bought me a dram to say, what do you call an idiot between two legends? Shayla, you're in no way an idiot, and I think you're going to prove. I predict that we will prove that in the quiz. this evening. And Duncan Wood, that looks like a new name, Duncan. He's in. Thank you, Roy, for Recycle Reviews 13. Ralfy, love your books and videos.
Hey, the books, folks. Is this the point where, Roy, where I get to plug my books a bit?
You're Ralfy. You can do whatever you like when you sit behind the bar, Ralfy. You want to plug books?
I just want to really take the opportunity, because I know that a number of folk watching have bought one or both of my books. Search for a Whiskey Bothy Stories from a Whiskey Bar, and the only reason they came about was because of self-publishing. No publisher would touch me because I'm not the right sort, so to speak, and I am not a great speller, but with technology, it's a game changer. And I want to thank everybody who's bought the books. I really enjoyed writing them. I've started the third book now, which is going to be different again, but there'll be a few familiar characters in it popping up, and some weird and wonderful stories, which basically they're true, but I have to put them as fictional in case somebody wants to sue me about them.
Sure. Listen, I bought the first book, of course. I bought the first book from you at the festival and got it signed. Thank you. The second book I bought, and then you sent me the second one, which was cheeky, but it was signed and I kept it, and I gave away the second one. So that means that they're still available to buy, right?
Absolutely. In fact, as high street shops are reopening, because so many book sales have been online, they're referring online to see what's been selling. So now bookstores are now stocking my book, which is great. But the primary location really is Amazon. And I know it's a big giant behemoth, and it is where it is. But frankly, that was my opportunity. The self-publishing platform was really my opportunity to do this. And I'm absolutely delighted that how well received and all the 5-star ratings and reviews that I've had, they don't go unnoticed. And thank you to everybody for support and either commenting about the book or buying the book, or just being aware of it. Thank you.
And of course, the new one is good because it's not like you don't need to consume it all in one big chunk. You can drop in and just take a wee anecdote, a chapter, a story at a time, which is fantastic as well.
Very much so. There'll be more chapters, but they will be a little bit shorter, and there will be some slightly surreal short chapters that really kind of add to kind of dimension to it, but no more spoilers.
Fantastic. No more spoilers. Just you keep getting yourself into trouble and keep making and eavesdropping and hearing stories.
That's not difficult. I don't think Glendronach have forgiven me yet.
Yeah, well, I had a wee whinge at Glendronach as well. I think it's okay. I think the audience that we speak to are right there with us, Ralfy. They understand, and sometimes whiskey is like a very, very emotive thing. So it's not just a brand we're buying into there, it's experiences and moments and something we can trust. And when it pivots like that and moves and changes direction, we feel it a little bit because we've invested in it. Peter Eichen down south. Peter, I hope your winter's going very well. He's down in the Southern Hemisphere. Such a treat having you back, and Ralfy, for such a great topic. Unfortunately, we'll catch the rest on replay. I know it's very early in the morning for you, Peter, but thanks very much for your virtual drama friend. Ralfy, I'm going to let you kick off. The Highlands.
Highlands, right, Joe?
I know it's a big region there, but we touched on it there when you started to talk about the Western Highlands and you listed the distilleries there. It's your turn to take the Highlands. What does a Highland whiskey mean to you, and what would you pick to represent it?
Well, nobody's going to guess this one. The Highland region is geographically the largest in terms of square miles. And interestingly, it probably has less diversity within the region than, say, the Island region or even the Speyside region. Now, I know that's your kind of thing. Well, how do you figure that one out, Ralfy? But the Highlands, they always have that kind of frequently, not always. They frequently have that dried fruit arrival. They frequently work well with sherry casks. They frequently have a drier development a more elegant development, and a bit more complexity in the finish. I noticed that Speyside sweeter malts tend to often be a little bit more two-dimensional in the finish. Highlands are a little bit more extra in the finish, so long as it's not been cramped with Caramel E150A. Had to mention that. Moving on. Anyway, here's my pick.
Oh, superb. Superb. Glenmorangie.
Why?
Is that's Kintaruban you've held up there, is it?
No, it's not. Oh, no. This is a forthcoming Ralfy review, by the way. I'm giving you spoilers. That's a Malaga cask.
Masala cask. No, Malaga cask.
Malaga cask. Hang about.
Now, does this mean, tell us about the presentation of this. What ABV is this going out at?
Right, the ABV is 47.3%. 47.3%. Unchill filtered.
Yes.
Glenmorangie.
Yes.
Hey, malt mates, the Anorak army is making progress here. Let me just state for the record, we may think we're a small bunch of enthusiasts, but see, during a pandemic lockdown, we collectively have never been more important to the Scotch whisky industry historically than we are now. And do you know what? They will never admit how important that small, relatively small army of high spending, interested, genuinely formed, connected, and entrepreneurial Anoraks are to the success of Scotch whisky. Let's not underestimate the influence we have today and the considerably increased influence we will have over the forthcoming years.
Well, that's good to see that Glenmorangie are putting that on the. I was a wee bit disappointed with a recent purchase that I had from Glenmorangie because the ABV had dropped and they'd removed the age statement. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see what they've done with. I think it was the Kintaruban went from 12 to 14 years. They brought that one out at 47%. We're seeing Royal Brackla up their game. Royal Brackla's brought out their new presentation at 46% unchill filtered natural colour. We've seen the same moves as well from Glenturret. You know, this is not just a wee fun distraction in zeitgeist. This is actually the future. This is malt whiskey we're speaking about. This is not product for consistency's sake behind a brand. Yeah. This is precious liquid, an organic product, matured in an organic vessel, malt for malt's sake. It shouldn't have anything taken away and it shouldn't have anything added to it. And when that is the case, they should do what, Ralfy? Where should they put it?
Right.
On the bottle.
Yeah. Slowly. Quality, not quantity. Just to clarify, you mentioned organic. To put that into context.
I don't mean organic as in a farming practice. I mean
like organic in the contemporary sense of organic. But you're right. The process has actually changed so little because there's no need to change it because the original formula is so damn successful. And furthermore, never in the history of Scotch whisky and international quality beverages has the international audience had such an open-minded palate and a mature sense of judgment. And let's state for this for the record, there are now more experts out there in Anorak land than quite a number of professionals in the industry who never taste anything beyond their own product.
I agree. I find it all the time. The more you speak to people, the more you understand the weight on them of their job in order to be working inside their own portfolio and their own products means that it's difficult for them to do what we do. We see the Scotch whisky as an entire landscape, all its variation and forms.
Yeah.
Whereas people that are in the industry are often very, very focused on their own portfolios and things. That makes us, in certain respects and in certain ways, a bit more informed. Danny Hebbington. Danny, that looks like a new name, who's bought me a dram. Saying hello from Brecon. Great to see Ralfy, the OG, on live again. Currently sipping a signature 23-year-old Inchgower, which Ralfy actually gave me a heads up on. Just recently. There you go. Fantastic.
Just to explain, Roy, why this particular Glenmorangie and the clues in the cask. It's a Malaga cask. It is very unusual for Malaga casks to be represented in Scotch whisky. And I bought this out of curiosity, and a little handy hint I got from a malt mate. I have not been disappointed. It is characteristically the complex, soft Glenmorangie style, essentially a sort of lowland distillery in the Highlands, North Highlands. But it's the casks themselves. The Malaga cask is basically a soft, slightly syrupy Madeira in Spain.
I was just about to say, so it's like a dessert. Is it a fortified wine, Malaga?
Yeah. It is a regional permutation of sherry, sort of. But there's not a lot of it. It tends to be consumed locally. It's not really on the radar. And as a result, the casks are pretty good because there's not over demand where they're churning them out. Glenmorangie have picked up on this. And I suspect it's because of all the extensive contact network that LVMH have, that someone involved in the wine side has said, hey, here's some great casks going. What would they be good for? Scotch whisky. What have we got? Ardbeg. What was the other one again? Glenmorangie. Right, that'll do.
Got you. Absolutely got you. We've just had some pests. We've just had some trolls in the chat, so I've made Shayla a moderator to help out McAllen Fine and Rare Doc, and perhaps any other admins that I've got in tonight, just to clear up any nonsense that we have.
What were the trolls saying? Was it all hateful and spiteful and nasty?
No, I think it was sex pests.
Was it? Oh my goodness!
Which one of us were after bloody best? Excellent. So Shayla, I hope that's okay for you. I hope that's okay. Listen, I think that most of the folk in the chat will be able to predict exactly what I would pick as a Highland whiskey.
Right, so
for me, a Highland whiskey, there's still a bit of a floral element there. For me, it's very malt driven. For me, it can be really quite diverse. Sometimes it's nice if it's got a little bit of peat in there sometimes, not too much, because the peat would have been the fuel source at once upon a time, way before the roads and the railways, of course. But for me, it's that kind of malt driven, and I have this romantic idea about it, just leaving it for a while in a bourbon cask and bring some of that lovely fruit and barley sugar and bring some of the nice kind of more white stone fruits and things like that. I've got two Highlanders here.
I can guess.
So, are you going to guess?
I was thinking I was having a guess, but no, I don't want to spoil your intro. Hey, this is your show. It's your gig.
No, have a guess. Have a guess. Have a guess. Go.
Let me see now. Is it going to be Southern Highland? No, it wouldn't be Glengoyne. Wouldn't be Aberfeldy. No. Edradour, yeah, that's a real chameleon character. But I think we're going to head further north.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to get this wrong.
Throw a dart. See how you got on.
Throw a dart. Right tail. Balblair.
Oh, so close. So very close.
Oh, Kleinlich. Oh, for goodness, there you go.
Kleinlich.
Just right in the corner.
Now, I've just thrown away my full bottle of Kleinlich. The only one I had here as a prop is the V20CL, which I'm not going to open. I'm going to keep this. There's a wee sentimental story behind this bottle. But there's another Kleinlich 14 on order. It's a staple here, and I enjoy it. And I think that Kleinlich is tough because the independent Kleinliches, the cast strength stuff, it's a way out of our price range now. It's difficult to get a hold of. And yes, Diageo don't do the best with this because they could tell us about what the colour situation is. But we have to just assume that, yes, this Diageo, they're probably adding a wee bit of colour to this. But this 14-year-old has been a staple for me that I've loved. And it's my perfect example of a Highland style that I would put down in front of a beginner. It's 46% ABV, so you're getting close to the limit at where you would want a beginner to be sipping. Whiskey 46 is just about high enough, thanks. But Kleinlich 14 for me. As an outlier there, as something, I've got a second bottle here is a bit of an outlier, that I think is very, very good at illustrating what I was talking about with the fruity side, the stone fruit side, peaches and cream and things like that I love on a Highland whiskey. And this is a Glencadam. Now, that there's a number of Glencadams that you can pick. I remember the 15 a few years back was your whiskey of the year. I love the 10-year-old. I've raved about the 10-year-old. This 18-year-old is harder to get a hold of, a wee bit more expensive, but absolutely worth the money. It's delicious and really, really subtle and soft. And if you struggle to get either of these, I think Deanston would be a fantastic pick too. It's got a nice texture. It's malt driven. The things that I've talked about is there in Deanston as well. If I was sitting down in front of a beginner though, I would let them taste some Clynelish 14.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. It's hard to get Clynelish 14 or Clynelish generally now, isn't it?
Particularly as an independent bottling, my experience is that it actually can be quite chameleon. In fact, in many ways, it behaves like the old Brora did, in that you had the rare malt selection Broras, which at the Brora bottlings, which established its cult reputation, thanks primarily to Serge Valentin at Whisky Fun. But when you tasted Brora from independent bottlers like, let me see, Duncan Taylor, good example, or Gordon MacPhail, they were barely recognisable as Broras.
Yeah, very light. Yeah,
very different. And no way with these independent bottlings of Brora would you say that it was a mega stellar single malt. But I really think that what you had there, and I've mentioned it in the past, was that to get more diversity within a single malt, they'd use casks from another distillery. So if you matured Brora in an ex-Lagavulin cask, for example.
Or Clynelish in an ex-Lagavulin cask, yeah.
Absolutely. You're going to get, whatever you get, you're going to get a very interesting malt. And this is rarely the topic of conversation out with industry circles.
Yes, I fully agree. John Glazer's done a very good job of releasing quite a few different takes on a Brora style, often with Clynelish as the backbone. And I think he likes to add a little bit of smoky peaty whiskey in there in order to get close to, and it's wonderful whiskey when he does it well. I think it's very good. I've had a wee dram in from Nick, although I think Nick's winding us up here. He's saying he's wondering why neither of us picked the King Alexander for the Highland, Dalmore King Alexander.
Right, so.
Is this a whiskey channel or what? Sorry, he's giving us a wink.
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, the less we say, the better. I mean, you know, it's not that it's a bad whiskey. It's just, again, the way that whiskey makes it into the bottle and what happens in between. Dalmore, generally, I'm speaking about, rather than just the King Alexander. And I also missed a dram from Jimmy Legg saying, can you ask Ralfy what his actual pick for the Highlands is? He's doubting your Glenmorangie trust there.
Oh, all right, Joe. If you don't want to go with a Glenmorangie, go with a Deanston 12. Right, so if you want to hedge your bets, but I'm mentioning this for a reason. It's a sweet whiskey, but it's an interestingly sweet whiskey. It's
and I think we have to celebrate and applaud when they go. They put unchill filtered on the label, Ralfy. They put it out at 47+%. There's an age statement on there.
Yeah,
and I probably would guess that there's a good chance that could be natural colour too.
Quite possibly, because it's been in first fill casks, and it's worth noting that for many years, right throughout the 1990s and most of the 1980s, Glenmorangie 10-year-old was the #1 volume-selling malt in Scotland.
Absolutely, and I think it might still be, yes.
Yeah, tallest stills in Scotland, a lot of reflux. There's natural spirit-driven complexity and a certain lightness with substance that you get in a fresh young Glenmorangie. It would be really interesting to see it as an 8-year-old raw, just an ex-bourbon cask, and just see what you get. I think it's the same with Glenfiddich. Young Glen.
I think it would be amazing to see the Glenmorangie 10 at cast strength.
Yeah. I mean, Ardbeg have done it with the wee beastie.
Yep.
Same company.
Yeah.
Young Glenmorangie, 7-year-old.
I think Glenmorangie, that lovely pineapple note, the tropical fruit, I think Glenmorangie with a higher ABV, the standard 10 original with a higher ABV would be amazing. Graham Young's bought me a dram to say the new Glenturret 12 is indeed sublime stuff. Mine, mulled home from Glasgow by a beautiful visitor, just sipped my last drop of the Brora 35 when mentioned here. I do wish that sample would never end. Cheers to both of you. Cheers to you too, Graham, out in Canada. That's a treat, a Brora 35-year-old, probably from one of the special releases. Let's take a step then from the Highlands into Speyside. And I believe, I've lost, who introduced the Highlands? Was it me? No, was it you that introduced it? No, it was you. It's my turn for Speyside, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know the diversity, and this is interesting because we're contrasting here. The diversity that you talked about in the Highlands, I feel that is more prevalent from my perspective in Speyside.
Mm-hmm.
I see, you used a good word earlier in the stream tonight, that dichotomy thing. I see the kind of light orchard fruit, the Glenlivet, the Glenfiddich style, apples and pears, young 1012 whiskey, quite lightly coloured, quite vibrant light whiskies. You also see big, rich, decadent malts from Speyside as well. The Outliers of this world, Macallans, especially Macallans of old, and the one I'm going to actually proffer for something I would like to put on the table to put to a beginner. I'll just grab it, because I think you need to bring a bit of sherry weight. I think you need to hold up something that is, it doesn't need to be exclusively sherry cask matured, but if the style and the profile gives them that contrast against their lighter Highlander, their maybe more the salinity of the Highlander and maybe the lightness of the Lowlander, this is what I would put up.
Good choice.
I think it's the only one that has 46 of their core range that is 46% ABV. I'm not 100% sure on that. Obviously, there's the 105, which is 60% ABV, but the rest are 43. And Glenfarclas actually tells you on the label, they type the words natural colour. Interestingly, they don't write anything about the status of filtration, but I have it on good authority that the 15-year-old is not chill filtered.
But there is no reason why every distillery that wants to be taken seriously by the modern whiskey customer can reduce the volume of emails coming into the distillery and just put the little magic words on the label, which will automatically improve their reputation in the global marketplace. And it's called natural colour, or cask sourced colour only, and unchill filtered. And this idea that someone over in Singapore had a big tantrum because their whiskey went cloudy with all that non-chill filtration, couldn't they put their bespoke designer ice cubes in it? Frankly, it's a load of bollocks.
I understand producers wanting to listen to their customer base and give their customers what they're asking for. I understand all of that. But when it comes to malt whiskey, you've been making it for hundreds of years. You're the experts. When the customers come to you and say they don't want it to go cloudy, give them a blend. Tell them that malt whiskey and the integrity of malt whiskey means that it should be going cloudy if they're choosing to pour it on ice or store it in a cold environment. We all are enjoying this swelling of knowledge and education and the ability to talk about these topics. And the industry needs to come clean and say, do you know what? For these, this is how it's handled and treated, and this is how it's packaged, this is how it's presented. If we put caramel in it, we need to tell you. Where else in the world do we add something and not tell anybody, sugar? It's incredible. And then when they don't do it, put it on the label that it's not done, and then teach the customer what they can expect from that. Manage expectations. Malt whiskey should go cloudy if you drink it cold.
But the thing is, marketing departments in big companies would prefer dumb customers who passively consume and don't question.
And yet, you use the example of the tantrum in Singapore. I think that there may be, and I'm just guessing here, I have no intelligence, the reason that a company like Glendronach would pivot like they did is to seem more attractive potentially to that type of market who don't want cloudy whiskey. First Phil Whiskey's bought me a dram from New Zealand. Some excellent, easy to watch content coming out from Phil, fantastic channel. Some people like to watch live sport, Phil is saying. But the live sport that I don't want to miss is watching Roy and Ralfy talk about whiskey live. It's nice to welcome you in here, Phil. Thank you very much for your nice words and your dram. So you think Glenfarclas 15 is a good choice then, and it's. I noticed you nod and enjoy. What does Ralfy have? What's he hiding? What's your interpretation of Speyside then? If I talk about the dichotomy then of that lighter style, the apple crisp orchard style of the Glenlivets and Glenfiddichs versus the more richer sherry experiences. What's your take on Speyside?
Mm-hmm. My take on Speyside is that it's a region of mini regions, and that the informed customer, the whiskey faithful, just love the fact that you can literally taste whiskies across the map and draw lines and circles within the Speyside region that basically, well, here's the sherry monsters, the good sherry monsters, Aberlour, Glenfarclas, literally half a mile away from each other. And here are some of the coastal Speyside distilleries, more Highland in character, more diverse. Glenroma, good example. Glenmoray, yeah. And so Speyside has the most number of distilleries for a region, which makes it far easier actually to say within that region we can narrow it down as we gain more experience. We can get a peaty style like Ardmore, for example. We can get a Highland style like, for example, in a Knock Do. We can get an absolute classic Speyside style in Cragganmore. My choice is, I want to bring in the independent bottlers here. So there's Signatory, Glenlivet, and it's unchill filtered natural colour. Now, Glenlivet is a widely available, very accessible Scotch single malt whiskey in the world. And you can get a number of, without ruining your bank account, you can get a number of age statements if you want. You can get the non-age statement if you want. So there's good diversity of the house style. But it's when you go to the independent bottlings, you can get fairly dramatic interpretations of exactly the same spirit signature, but using far fewer casks, more variety, assortment of casks, the singularity of a single cask. This is where the independent bottlers are so valuable and have been such a bonus to Scotch whisky. And it's such a shame that the official bottlers tend to look down their nose at them.
I think that there's a lot of validity in that. How much the independents have done to help revive the category and from the enthusiasts and the grassroots, and really bringing that granularity of experience, that much more niche defined thing, bringing a completely different take on what can often be a very engineered product in an official bottling, honestly. Huge vattings that are often made to be as easy to drink as possible rather than interesting or complex.
That are sanitized. And if you're starting in whiskey, fine. But when you're moving on a little bit, and even for a beginner, that bottle of Glenlivet, it's not too threatening, it's not frightening, because it's just a nice, easygoing, even as an independent bottling, accessible Speyside. And in the old days, it was the king. It was the king of the roost.
The whole entire region was named after Glenlivet. It was the Glenlivet region. It wasn't Speyside.
Yeah.
Tell me, did you notice when we talk about this zeitgeist of moving towards natural presentation, Glenlivet did quite an interesting thing last year, because most of the product is out there at 40 to 43%. The legacy presentation, following the footsteps of the blends legacy, from 1960s onwards, the malts came out and they were just presented in the same way. However, Glenlivet did something interesting last year where they brought out their 12-year-old in a dumpier bottle and brown glass, and they called it Glenlivet 12 Illicit Still. And they presented it at, I want to say 48%. It was 46 or 48%, an unchill filtered version of Glenlivet. Exactly what we've just been asking for from Glenmorangie.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to try that one yet?
No, I've been looking for it and can't find it.
Well, I can send you some if you want a wee drop sent over to you to try it.
We'll do a swapsy.
I do a wee swapsy. That would be a good way for you to try it. I think, it was one of these whiskies that didn't blow me away. I didn't think it was amazing, but what I did want to do was applaud the step, because I think that while it didn't blow me away, I would take it every single day of the week over the standard Glenlivet 12, which has just become so boring. And I know
Roy, that is crime speak. That's crime talk.
Yes. But I'm speaking from a very subjective, personal perspective as an enthusiast, but I'm just being honest. Glenlivet, would I put it down here, Glenlivet 12 for a beginner? If it was somebody that was not used to drinking neat spirits, there's an argument that a 40% whiskey has a very, very valid. But then I would be using shelf space for something that I'm going to reach past far too often myself. Whereas the Illicit Still, I am getting through.
When you mentioned that you found a Glenlivet boring, that is not an isolated situation. The modern whiskey drinker who genuinely takes an interest in the diversity and availability of quality spirits globally is moving a much faster pace than your average whiskey drinker 20 or 30 years ago, who had much more restricted views on what a flavor should be about. And in fact, let's not underestimate this. Our palates are getting really quite sophisticated because the diversity of flavors and of forms that we have available to us and that we're spending our money on because it's a primary hobby.
I think that is interesting. I think if you imagine all these enthusiasts out there trying all these whiskies, more whiskey, more variation than we've ever had access to in the past, that we are developing a keener palate all the time. That is interesting. I'm not speaking for myself. My palate is still a very blunt instrument, but I do enjoy trying. Top Shelf Dustin has bought a dram to say, what do you think about making premium ice edition for chill filtered products? Would that make sense and cover costs for those markets? If you can't get them drinking blends to pour over ice, if they do insist on malt whiskey to pour over ice and they still insist that it doesn't go cloudy when they do it, or there's an issue with storage and distribution and going cloudy in the bottle and things, then maybe you would literally need brand it as such, as something for cold serving. But even then, that is, to me, that isn't what malt whiskey is about. I mean, we're enjoying cloudy beer these days. We're enjoying the whiskey does not need to be clear to be delicious and enjoyable, and that's something that we need to have people understand. If it goes cloudy, it's okay. These are oils and natural fats and esters in the whiskey that's causing this. And Magic Lisiak has bought me a dram. I love when Ralfy starts his rants about the natural presentation, and I strongly agree. Cheers to my favourite whiskey enthusiast, Magic. It's really nice to have you, my friend, and thank you for your dram. And Jimmy Legg has bought another dram. Can you ask Ralfy about the old Longmorn 15 compared to the Longmorn 16 green that everyone loves? I think only Ralfy and I like the 15 better. Well, you've probably got a bit more experience of what it was like at the time, Jimmy. If we enjoy the Longmorn 15 now, it's been in glass for 15 years. It's not the same product. What's your take on it, Ralfy?
Well, yes and no. 15 better than the 16 in terms of the flavour delivery. The 15 simply had better casks, better sherry casks. And that really showed, because Longmorn is a sherry monster. We don't see it because it disappears into Pernod Ricard blends. And it, Longmorn's a distillery that if Billy Walker took over, it would be the new Glendronach. That's what Longmorn is. There you go. Now, something I want to kind of pick up on that was just mentioned earlier is when whiskey is chill filtered. I want people to be aware of this. You have this concertina, the stainless steel concertina of what looks like paper ceiling tiles, and they're pushed together like a closed concertina musical instrument, and then the whiskey is chilled to 0 or even -0, and then forced through these filter papers under high pressure. When the used papers are removed from the chill filtration device, they're not white, they're yellow, because chill filtration strips natural color and some flavor from whiskey. And
Well, we had Ian McMillan on, the guy responsible for transforming the Burn Stewart distilleries over to natural presentation. He took his people to the bottling hall and he picked up his hand on the filter and he ran it down the filter and he had people smell this. And it was aromatic. There was flavor and aroma coming from these oils. And he said, we spent a fortune maturing these whiskies, making the best whiskey we can make, maturing it and investing all these money in casks. We get it to the bottling hall right at the tickly point where we're ready to bottle it. You strip all of that out of it.
And that is coming from an industry, a highly respected, time-served industry professional who has a completely intact reputation and is highly regarded amongst the whiskey anoraks. Period.
I agree. Jimmy's asking about if they're all using the same chill filtration systems. A lot of them use centralized bottling plants. So I would guess that it's down to their specification whether they choose to put it through the filtration or not. But the answer is yes, they share bottling halls oftentimes. Not the independents like J&A Mitchell, they've got their own. Kilhoman have their own. I think Ardnamurchan have their own. So many more are moving towards having their own. Fantastic stuff. Let's switch then from our Speyside selections. Good choice on Glenlivet, good shout. The original name for Speyside as well. I chose Glenfarclas. If you didn't want to go Glenfarclas, if you wanted to try something a bit more apple orchard, I was going to hold up here the Tom and Till 14-year-old. The reason I've chosen the 14-year-old, similar to the Glenfarclas 15, this is the one in the range that they put non-chill filtered, 46% on the label. Some bottles do actually have natural colour written on it. This one does not. Instead, they've written high strength. So the 14-year-old Tom and Till is presented a wee bit better, a lighter take on Speyside, and I think delicious, one of my favourites. We're going to now switch across to Campbeltown, Ralfy, I think.
Yeah, let's go there.
It's your turn. You take it away on Campbeltown.
Yeah, okay. Campbeltown is...
I'm excited about this one.
A wonderful little anomaly, because really Campbeltown's point of reference has been one single distillery, which frankly in the 1980s and the 1990s, nobody was particularly interested in. Frankly, it didn't really matter, but it is an absolute testimonial and very self-evident as to the change in international attitudes of whiskey buyers, that Springbank has become as in demand as it has. Like Edradour, like Mortlach, like Lagavulin, it's an awkward whiskey. When you taste new make spirit from the stills, you're getting what's called a dirty cleric, right? And it's slightly fusty, and they don't make clean spirit. They push into the faints, and it gets a little bit soapy and just a little bit yeasty. And frankly, in an active cask, it works absolute wonders. And Springbank absolutely deserves its reputation. I only wish, malt mates, I could actually buy a bottle these days.
I know. You and I are speaking the same words. We're singing from the same hymn sheet here. They are a torchbearer. They are an absolute torchbearer for how to succeed doing things the right way. It's quite amazing. It does frustrate you and I both that we live in the country that it's made, and it's really, really difficult to buy. You know, we understand that it's a supply and demand issue, but I've been in the States and you see lots of it just sitting on the shelf. You can't bring it back because you're limited on what you can actually carry and things like that. I'm noticing I've missed an Everwind chat. I'm sorry, Everwind. And I also missed one from Akshay. Akshay's is still here, Everwind, but I've missed yours. So if you can ask a question again, I will try and pick it up. Welcome back, Roy. And the Barfly says, Akshay over in France. Fantastic to have you here, buddy. What a pleasure to have Ralfy on. He's saying, I agree with you, Akshay. I hope you're comfortable and enjoying yourself. I'm certainly enjoying hanging out. It just feels like I'm gassing with a pal about all things whiskey. I agree with you fully, and I've poured a Springbank. As you were speaking, that's exactly what I've picked up and poured.
Yeah.
This is probably what I would put down in front of somebody to say this is the quintessential Campbeltown style as we know it in the modern contemporary day, because back when there were 30 distilleries, we weren't around to be drinking whiskey.
Yeah.
In the modern day, Springbank is the one that's managed to keep the lights on. With a very short break in the 1980s. They're the ones that has endured, and they've brought back Glengyle. Thank you so much for that as well, Mitchells. It's a great job.
And there's Glengyle. You go out and try and buy a bottle of Kilkerran now.
Can I buy it?
You can't buy it. So,
you know, and there are. I hear, Ralfy, that there are idiots on YouTube preaching about how good this whiskey is, and then complaining about not being able to buy it, right? Us.
Guilty.
We know that we're part of the problem.
Yeah.
But the reason that we're going to continue to do it is that we want to celebrate and applaud the ones, even if we can't buy it. They deserve to be in demand because they're doing it well. That's my take on it, at least.
Of course, there's a subtle plan to all this promotion of Springbank and Glengyle, isn't there? Because it takes attention away from Glen Scotia.
Oh, yeah, beauty. Look at this.
We didn't script this.
We did not script it. So while we're whinging about not being able to buy Springbank,
next door,
right out and buy Glen Scotia 15.
Absolutely, because frankly, it's just as good as the others. I'll give you a wee bit of historical factoid. In the old days in the blender's room, they used to categorize and rate the quality of the signature of whiskies from the different region. And Glen Scotia was consistently rated as a higher, more complex single malt signature than Springbank. When you and I started off, nobody knew about Glen Scotia. The doors were locked. There was a dedicated little team struggling to keep the place going. It was famous for its black, neglected, unpolished stills.
And in fact, if I understand well, we're grateful to the Springbank team for helping out and keeping that distillery equipment running.
Yeah.
Back when it was shuttered, the Springbank team, and that's just that collaboration, that sense of family that exists in whiskey, right up till the point it's bottled, is something to be celebrated.
Yeah. And this year, Glen Scotia 25-year-old international single malt, best single malt whiskey in the world. Not Macallan. No. Not Lagavulin.
Yeah. And interestingly, if you compared the cost, the best value in Glen Scotia is not to be found in a 25-year-old, interestingly. But if you compare that 25-year-old against a Macallan or umpteen other brands, it's a bargain by comparison for a 25-year-old malt.
Particularly Dalmore. Absolute bargain compared.
I don't know. I know that I could never afford a 25-year-old Dalmore, a 25-year-old Macallan, not even a 25-year-old Abeg or any of these things.
We wouldn't use we wouldn't waste our time trying to afford them.
That ship has sailed. And
Yeah.
Cash and Ash is saying, two of the greats, speaking about many of the regional greats, what a treat. I have to say that I'm glad that you picked up that Glen Scotia 15. I think that it's one of these wee frustrating distilleries. They are there, Ralfy. They're making fantastic spirit. They're putting it out at a good presentation and good value, and it's available if they would just stop colouring it. It doesn't need to be as dark as it is. We're happy whatever colour it comes out at. It's wonderful liquid. Go the full hog and just bring us, just do the thing that Springbank has taught you is a super, super successful model. And we will embrace you. We will talk. We're already there. I was talking about double cask recently.
Can we just take the opportunity to drop the bomb on caramel colorant?
Absolutely. I tell you what I'll do, Ralfy. Do you want to see something?
Right, so let's see.
This bottle I'm holding up here is half full.
Did you get that prescription?
Yeah, this is half full. Now, this bottle that it's in, and you would maybe see if you look at the bottom of the glass, it's clear glass. And this has been sitting upright for weeks.
Yeah, you can make it yourself, folks. It's better quality when you do it in the cooker.
Well, this is distiller's caramel. Now I'm going to do something here. I'm going to hold this up. I'll get my face out of the picture and I hope that it can focus. If I hold this up and you want to see the texture of this thing.
Yeah. I reckon British BP could sell that by the barrel crude.
Oh, it's much more dense than that. I mean, the idea of I've tasted this, and you can taste it forever after you've just a tiny little amount, and it stains your skin too.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's brutal. That's distiller's caramel, by the way. That's
yeah. So let's drop the bomb. Let's drop the bomb in E150A. It is an admission by the producers that they have to add additional colour because they believe they never got the necessary colour from the casks in the first place, and they never got the necessary maturation from the casks. Because maturation and cask colour are symbiotic.
I will agree with you, and with a tiny d disagree as well, because if they get that flavour, if they say that the caramel does not add any flavour, and if they get that flavour from the whiskey, the way that they've matured it, I don't care what the colour is. And again, it's that education thing. We need to teach people that lighter coloured whiskies are delicious. We need to celebrate the pale colours. We know that dark whiskey sells. We know that it does, but that is down to misunderstanding. It's down to, or maybe it's down to preference. Maybe the majority of people do love big, rich, European, matured sherry cask whiskies and things. But pale whiskies, for me, a mature whiskey that's been left alone and just not messed around with, that's clean and pure and complex and left in a refill cask, that's my type of whiskey. Yeah. If we can teach people the engagement that can come from those whiskies, I think that might help our cause a little bit.
When you have light whiskies, look at the circumstances leading to that lightness. Glenfiddich, 12, a light whiskey. Lafroig, 10, a light whiskey. These are both spirit-driven experiences where the absence and the lightness of cask influence is in fact a primary feature.
I would love to see Chardonnay pale, white wine pale whiskies and celebrate them. And not have people expecting things the colour of stewed builder's tea all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It doesn't need to be like that. Sugar Kitty is saying, celebrating a good day at work right now with a Glen Scotia 15. Fantastic. Lost triplet hashtag. I wonder, the hashtag's lost on me, Sugar Kitty, but I'm very glad to have you in, and thank you for your dram as well. My question, everyone's saying, was why are there so few distilleries in the Lowlands and Campbeltown compared to the others? Is it resources, politics, infrastructure, or water sources? I'm not very sure. You know, with the explosion of new distilleries, I think it's always been a surprise to me that Campbeltown has only really had Glengyle revived in modern times. It's amazing, especially when you've got big players like Diageo. The only thing that's missing from their lineup is a Campbeltown distillery. Pernod Ricard only has one distillery outside of Speyside. So you would think that they would be interested in trying to develop something there. Have you got any intelligence on that? Why is there less? When you say so few distilleries in the Lowlands, Everwind, I need to tell you, Chris, that there's over a dozen Lowland distilleries now, Borders and Annandale, and all the distilleries up in Fife, joining Ailsa Bay. I've forgotten the name of the one that's down in the Burns distillery. There's lots and lots of Lowland distilleries, but I agree with you on Campbeltown. Have you any intelligence here? Why are we not seeing any new developments down there in the wee tune?
Politics. Really,
you think?
There'll be some reason. There'll be some tangible reason. This is a kind of guesswork. You would imagine that Campbeltown would be as appealing a location for a distillery as Islay, but Campbeltown is a small place. It depends on the water supply. It's a long road round to get to Campbeltown. They'd probably be far cheaper shipping stuff in and out in converted trawlers, and you just don't know the local politics. The
reason Campbeltown was there was because of sea trade, of course, and they don't have that now. They rely on the road the same as Islay does. They rely on the ferries and the roads. The days of the flat-bottomed puffers and things are behind us. But you would still imagine that somebody would have come up with an idea to make an artisanal, wee, small-scale distillery and piggyback on Campbeltown. See, before we move on, though, from Campbeltown, do you think that Glen Scotia are still living in the shadow a little bit of Springbank?
Not to the people watching this channel, Aquavit, no. But beyond, yes. It takes time for distilleries to gain their reputation and lose their reputation. I mean, you can see with Macallan, bless them. I don't even bother, when they've got a new release, I don't even bother looking anymore. And I'm just being honest about it, because there's just so much baggage now. And the feedback I get is, I bought a bottle of such and such Macallan, and I'm really disappointed. And all I can do is commiserate and say, well, you know, you're doing your research, you've popped along to my channel. Hopefully I can give you a helping hand to a certain extent as part of your wider search online. And this is the thing about online. Online will give you more at your fingertips of real-time information than all the whiskey books and all the official documentaries, and even quite a bit of the content of many whiskey magazines, which are still rooted in the past and the orthodoxy of whiskey talk.
I understand, and I agree with you. We're allowed to be a wee bit more maverick, especially when we're self-funded. More on that a wee bit later, Ralfy, right? It's easy to talk about Campbeltown because it is such a small region, as you say. There are so few distilleries there. It's interesting that we both picked up not only just Glen Scotia, but specifically that Glen Scotia 15. You made an exception recently in one of your extras videos, and you reviewed Glen Scotia Victoriana, which you enjoyed very much as well. Being a non-age statement, it's a rare thing for Ralfy to do. So listen, we would like people to be paying more attention to Glen Scotia, but we need Glen Scotia to come closer to us as well. Don't stop with the colour. It's malt whiskey. It's precious. Enthusiasts are going to be chasing it. Please give us it natural. We're gonna skip over the sea to Islay, Ralfy, for our final pick, but I'm going to tease why people should hang about a wee bit. You and I have been banging our heads together over the summer months in the background, hacking out this concept, this idea, convinced that it was a good idea, and then convinced that it might not be a great idea, and backwards and forwards. And when we put it out to some collaborative channels, everybody jumped on board with both feet, emphatically coming back and saying, absolutely, we support this idea.
The timing is right.
Yeah. Are we ready to talk about that tonight? Yes.
Tonight, but not quite yet.
Okay.
I just want to rewind a wee bit. I didn't formally review the Victoriana. I featured it as an extras. Yes. And I didn't give it a malt mark because it didn't carry an age statement. And goodness knows, why not? If it's a younger whiskey with older whiskey in it, put the younger age statement on and just let the price be a little bit higher, because as soon as you taste that juice, you'll know where the price is coming from. Because
even don't lead with the age statement, just put it in small writing on the back for the enthusiast.
Yes.
This whiskey contains many vintages, none of which are younger than 6 years old. Put whatever it is, the truth on the back.
A good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And this is down to transparency. And we shouldn't underestimate the fact that onliners and the audience that we attract are getting increasingly influential, and this is creating a certain communication between the onliners, particularly in the video formats, and the industry, that we pick our whiskies of the year, for example, and then we rapidly hear through the grapevine that, well, actually it's really boosted their sales. I'm not talking the little margins of boosting sales, seriously boosted sales. And it's of standard, available, normal, accessible whiskies most of the time. And also, I mean, I find this quite frustrating, actually, that I'll review, say, a single cask something or a small batch something, and I'll give it an over 90 out of 100 because, in my opinion, that's what it's worth. And then suddenly it all sells out. And even as it's selling out, the retailers jack the prices up, and the distilleries in distillery shops pop the prices up. And it's not a good thing to do. That's becoming an unwelcome conversation, an unwanted conversation on social media and Reddit platforms and Instagram, that people are now poison ready when an onliner gives a good review for a particular spirit, and then suddenly at prominent retailers, some, or even distillery shops themselves, they suddenly bump the price up. It's shabby.
Pockets, checkbooks, wallets, bank accounts have long memories. And if that's a game to play, it's a dangerous one, because you need people to come back and buy more of your product in the future. I am going to predict that you and I have gone in completely different directions for our last pick tonight. There is more than any other region. We didn't talk about, by the way, Campbeltown. I'm going to ask you then to summarize Campbeltown in terms of what it is. Before we jump over to Islay, what is Campbeltown in terms of a regional style? Because I think there is one that exists there. What's Ralph's take on it?
Campbeltown is a landlocked island. It's an island style of malt.
I agree.
That's what it is.
Do you taste what we talk about? The funk, the industrial, the heavy, sometimes challenging notes that comes from Campbeltown. Springbank and Glen Scotia, and occasionally Kilkerran, all combined. Do you get that flavour? Sometimes it comes across farmy, sometimes it comes across coastal, sometimes it comes across engine oil and industrial and mechanical. But all the while, it's this challenging note that's difficult to tie down and it's difficult to articulate.
Yeah. I think that it simply reflects the culture of Campbeltown. It's one of the most isolated towns in Scotland. It has its own marine culture, that isolation culture, and it's quite a diverse, it's a complex place for good and for bad reasons. Because I've known folk from Campbeltown who've, they've moved to Glasgow for a good reason. And I think that all three distilleries in Campbeltown are very small distilleries. They're all hands-on distilleries. And when you have small distilleries, you get that variation. You don't get the ease of consistency that you would get with the highly industrialized likes of Kinninvie and Roseisle. But do we see Kinninvie apart from in Monkey Shoulder? Do we see Roseisle as a single malt? No. Because Campbeltown has identity in its small uniqueness. Big distilleries can easily lose their identity, and it'll be very interesting to see how Macallan develops.
I can taste a very specific thing in this, in Kilkerran, occasionally, in Hazelburn and Longrow, even the peated Longrow, and in Glen Scotia. Not all the time, not in everything, but it often pops up. And it feels to me, and it's interesting that you say an island style. I've heard that said before. I agree with you fully that there is a real kind of coastal thing going on there. But I think that probably, maybe arguably, with the exception of Islay, Campbeltown has a very, very defined regional style. Donner Pass Whisky is saying, can you both speak to the Scotch Malt Whisky Association censoring distilleries like Bruichladdich that put all the ages of the casks in a batch on a website? Now all but the youngest casks' ages are blacked out. Listen, I agree. I agree with you, Tim, completely. I think it's silly. I think it's nonsense. I think it's we're in a situation now that the longer it continues, the harder it is to dig ourselves out of it, because we're going to get to a point that another upcoming whiskey producing country or region or producer is going to step up and make a big story about how cloak and dagger the Scotch industry is and the Irish industry is, and we need to stop. There's no need for it in the modern era when everybody's embracing natural and honest and integrity. David Hong has also bought me a dram and said, hello, Ralfy, and welcome back, Roy. Thank you very much, David, and thanks for being in, and thanks to Tim Donner Pass Whisky as well. I'll lead with Islay, Ralfy.
Right,
a lot of folk in here desperate to know what we're banging on about with this announcement. I think Islay probably is the easiest. If you wanted to be lazy about it, it's the easiest to define in terms of what's expected in terms of a regional style. Now, that's defined by the fuel that existed on that island. Everybody cooked, heated their house, and dried barley with peat.
Yeah.
And incidentally, through that process, there was a flavour, a phenolic flavour that was imparted in the barley that ended up in the distilled spirit for hundreds of years that became that style, not just in Islay, but the Western Highlands and all over Scotland. Islay preserves that to this day. Late 19th century, Bruichladdich appears, Bunnahabhain appears, flat-bottomed ships. It's easy to get coal on and off the island, and suddenly we have a new, lighter, fruitier style of Islay. I understand. But today, we still, when we say Islay whiskey, I think we are thinking about this kind of whiskey.
Yeah, good call, good choice.
And if I wanted to give somebody a hammer blow, extreme bookend example of the style, but trying to keep, I mean, Corryvreckan is a good one, or Goodall is also an option on age statement, but the ABV is higher at 54-ish%, but this is down at 46%. But they put unchill filtered on the label here. It's 46% ABV in a 10-year age statement. It's available everywhere, still at Big Ten, and still a decent price, hovering about £50 mark. I think it's a brutalist way of showing people what the Islay style is. And if you wanted to give them something a wee bit softer, if somebody wasn't used to drinking neat spirits, I would then proffer my biggest weapon in my arsenal of converting friends to enjoying malt whiskey is this. Lagavulin 16. And I know that we've detected the changes over the years in this bottle, but for me, even in the modern editions, it is still a very, very powerful weapon for me specifically in converting my friends. And this
is what I would put down on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Demonstrate what I interpret is the classic Islay style, that peat smoke, savouriness, saltiness, combined with bizarre medicinal iodine, and the fruit somehow manages to pop through, but you've got all of this complexity going on, and when it hits you at the right moment, it does a great job. Craig McCutcheon's bought me a dram to say, keeping me sane while working late. Thanks, guys. Thank you to you, Craig. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't miss one. I'm maybe missing a couple tonight. I don't think so. I think I'm okay. What say you, Ralfy? Have I misstepped there? Have you got something different? Or
Yeah.
I expected it.
You see, the big peat monsters, or the big smoky peat monsters, are the obvious association with Islay. But it's worth articulating that Islay has some interesting diversity within it. That you learn a lot. For example, when you taste some unpeated Kalila, and you wonder what unpeated Lagavulin would taste like, but there's no access to it. And you wonder what an unpeated Lafroig would be like.
There was some unpeated Lafroigs out there from the, I get your point. Yep.
Right. And even on Islay, with such a strong association with peat monsters, you do have that other side very ably represented by Bona 12. Natural colour, unchill filter, contemporary bottling. This is the one that when I was living in Partick and I was sitting in the pub with Sani and the other workers, you know, this is the malt I'd get from behind the bar. Was the old green bottling, the Westring Home, you know.
40% ABV, interesting.
Yeah, and, you know, when you're starting out, it's such a friendly, uncomplex, but sophisticated whiskey. So I'm going to pour a wee glass of this.
I've noticed on the recent Bunnahabhain 12s how very, very sherry-led they are as well. It's become a much bolder thing in the modern era, I think, Bunnahabhain 12.
Yeah.
To get your take on it there.
And also you get peated Bunnahabhains, which are fascinating.
Yes.
They work so well. And it just shows you that whether an Islay malt is peated or unpeated, it's still a great malt. There we go.
I've just I wasn't fully conscious of sipping this when I sipped it. I was listening to you, and then as soon as it hits the palate, everything is activated. This is not like anything else that you've had in the lineup so far. It's completely different. As my friend Bill, who was in here earlier tonight, the first time I gave him this to contrast in a lineup 15 years ago, perhaps. I remember him holding it up and saying, "This is not even the same drink." The difference is so stark from some of the other things that we've been comparing, simply because of the fuel source, the original fuel source, that peat element. And I think it's a wonderful thing that it's preserved to this day as a style.
There never has been the sheer diversity and range of flavours in single malt Scotch whisky that we enjoy now at this moment in time. There's never been a period in the past. Sure, they had, we can claim they had better casks. They had a more natural, so to a certain extent, yeah. You can claim that they had lower yields in the barley, which meant less sugar for alcohol, but more flavour. And there's a lot of truth in that. But you do find that some of the snobs, the big budget snobs, will claim that whiskey used to be better. It just did. But they're being sentimental because our sense of smell and taste are emotional senses. And they make us sentimental for the past. And we get triggered by old bottle effect and all the rest of it. And it's very easy to talk about something to people that they haven't experienced for themselves.
Yeah.
Because you look like you've got authority. But the sheer diversity and availability of whiskies now compared to the old days is night and day. We live in really exciting times, and not just for Scotch whisky, but for bourbon now, for rum, for rye, for global spirits. It's just exploding, and we've got a ringside seat, folks.
That's a nice segue, Ralfy, isn't it? It's a time to be celebrated. The time that we're living in now is a time to be is a time to celebrate. I think that in order for me to tease this announcement, can I make a suggestion?
Fire away.
I'm going to ask you just some straightforward questions, and you're allowed to answer yes, no, absolutely, don't be daft, that kind of thing.
Right, Joe.
I'm going to ask you something. Are there any whiskies that you've shared, or indeed I've shared tonight, that you think are worthy of applause and awards and recognition, in your opinion?
Don't be daft. yeah, there is, because the industry takes very seriously the awards services that connect with it, whether it be the International Wines and Spirits competition, whether it be the Malt Maniacs Awards, whether it be the Country Life or Scottish Field Awards. Awards are important because they're third-party marketing endorsement for products that marketing departments themselves can't reach. However, with some of these competitions, the distillers have to provide samples, they have to pay fees to enter, administration fees and participation fees. And so I think that in recent years, for the onliners to nominate their own personal Whisky of the Year, it's actually become quite significant to distilleries, because we tend to nominate and give attention to available, accessible, affordable, reasonably priced, good quality whiskies which showcase what whiskey can be. And it's not just us. Roy, you've had your Whisky of the Year. I've had my Whisky of the Year. You have the rum reviewers doing the Rum of the Year now. Rye, you're getting Rye of the Year, Bourbon of the Year. A lot of channels are picking up on this very successfully, and more power to their elbow. However, what we don't have is where a number of separate independent channels join forces and amplify the value of their contribution in highlighting the distilleries which, in our opinion, get it right and deliver what we're out to buy. They deserve to have more recognition. We should be promoting them because, for a very simple reason, because there's so many new start distilleries out there looking for direction, and they're not big, massive corporate multinational operations unless they're invested in them and by them, and are taken on under their wing by them and bought over by them, because big companies like little companies for their singularity and their identity and their reputation. And I think that the internet creates unexpected opportunities for ordinary anoraks like you and I and many others online to do something new and fresh and meaningful, which isn't just another competition where you enter and you pay your money at the door and you get the oxygen of the award.
I get where you're going with this. What you're talking about is an independent, community-focused, collaborative,
collective,
something that celebrates the best in whiskey in an independent way, and in a way that somehow I mean, let's be honest, Ralfy. You know, if we just asked everybody out in the world what their favourite whiskey was and give it an award, it would be a Boaty McBoatface. It would be Fireball, or it would be Macallan 12, or it would be Johnny Walker or something. What we're talking about is that these commentators come together and define these products that need to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Put it out to the community and ask for community collaboration as well. So what we're asking, wouldn't it be amazing if there were a bunch of channels willing to come together, all the top commentators right now within YouTube, but in the future, who's to say, it could go further very, very easily. Established channels now, in the future it could go further. They come together, they define these whiskies, and then they work with their individual communities, put it out to them for them to decide the whiskies that need to be celebrated in the modern day. That sounds like a pretty cool concept. What would you call such a thing, Ralfy?
Let me have a think about it now. Excuse me while I remove my bonnet and scratch my head a wee bit. Oh, I tell you what, Roy, how about, it's just, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, you know. How about the online Scotch Whisky Awards? I
like the sound of that. And sorry to everybody that's hanging on for this thing, but this has been in development for a long, long time. Ralfy and I talked about this and how it could be run and how we could manage the administration behind it. And we came up with some solutions. Then we tentatively went out to a few channels. They jumped in with 2 feet, as I said. We went out to a few more channels. They jumped in. We're now at 24 channels and counting.
Nobody's knocked us back.
Nobody has said no. Everybody's excited. Everybody thinks it's a good idea. I'm going to share something with everyone just now to show that everybody that this is real and this is already happening in the background. Some of you might have heard about this already. It's already out there with the channels involved, and they're putting together their suggestions for the nominations now. And we'll go through a process of refining those together as 24 channels. And if the refined list will then go out to public polling in the middle or late September. That means that there is literally, you're relying on your online commentators to put forward the whiskies that they have discovered and enjoyed over the previous 12 months. And then they're putting it out to you to say, don't just listen to us. This is not a unidirectional thing. This is the modern era. We work in technology now, these platforms. You're part of this. You're the voice. You're the lifeblood of the community. Your voice matters. You're not simply, as Ralfy says, consumers. You are knowledgeable, informed customers. Tell us what you think about these whiskies that we've enjoyed over the last year. And that means that when the award is presented, when the award is announced, Ralfy and I getting together in November, it means that it's come from more than just a single opinion. It's come from a multitude of commentators online and a multitude, thousands and thousands potentially of people in the community. This is the website. You can go and see this now. It's called the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. So if you go to oswa.co.uk, oswa.co.uk, this website that you see here is live. It will give you an overview on the welcome page there. I'll skip the about page. We don't need to spend a lot of time looking at the about page here. But if you want to know more details, you can spend a bit of time reading that. What I'm going to do is skip straight to the contributors and let you see just some of the channels that are involved here. Any of these icons you can click on and get a bit more information behind what the channel is actually about. But what I actually recommend that you do is spend a wee bit of time understanding what the concept is first. I'll list off these channels. Let me see here. Obviously Ralfy, then alphabetical order after that. Myself, Eric Waite, Malt Box, Malt Reviews, No Nonsense Whisky, Scotch for Dummies, Sipper Social Club, Swedish Whisky Girl, The Malted Man Cave, The Mash and Drum, The Scotch Test Dummies, The Whisky Dictionary, The Whisky Tribe, Whisky Friend, Trenny and C, Whisky Central, Whisky in the Six, Whisky Jason, Whisky Mystery, Whisky Neighbour, Whisky Novice, Whisky Wednesday, and Whisky Whistle. A lot of whiskies there. If you click on any of these, as I say, you'll get a description of the channel, and you'll also get a link there to the channel as well, so that you can go and see what they're about. All of these guys are involved in this project, and all of them seem to be really excited about it too. categories are as follows. This is what we are voting for in the first year. Ralfy, this was hard. This was hard to define what these categories were going to be, right? Is this all about Scotch whisky?
Not entirely, no. Because it's the inaugural event, we have kept things quite practical to make sure we have the experience behind us before we get a little bit more inclusive and encompassing. But naturally, we're focusing on what we know best, which is Scotch single malt whisky and blended whisky. But importantly, the style of these awards is that they're being nominated and shortlisted by people who are buying the bottles for themselves through our partner channels, who I would ask if you subscribe to these channels. They're experienced and established commentators that bring an individuality to their content and a diversity of perspectives. And we're basically consolidating the vast spectrum of informed customer opinion, narrowing it down until we get a short list. And I can tell you right now, the Scotch whisky industry are going to notice this, specifically in the integrity of the award and the sales that they will get as a result of the award.
Well, I also would suggest that this is not exclusively limited to Scotch whisky, much in the same way. This is, yes, the online Scotch Whisky Awards, but much in the same way that the Whisky Magazine Awards is not limited to giving awards only to whisky magazines. This is coming from the Scotch whisky community. This is coming from the Scotch whisky commentators or the people that are involved in Scotch whisky online. And these are the categories that we've come up with. Like Ralfy said, we've got 8 categories. It started off with 4, then it grew and it grew. We're now at 8. And this is best entry-level whisky. This is somewhere in the order of $35, pounds, euros, whatever of that order. The best entry-level whisky. These are all intended to celebrate quality, value, and availability. The next category is the best blended whisky. That can be any blended whisky. Doesn't need to be blended Scotch. Could be blended malt. Could be any blend from anywhere, world whiskies, whatever. Best grain whisky, again, that can be interpreted as anything that isn't malt whisky, and it can be from anywhere. It does not need to be Scotch. Best producer distiller, again, anybody that is making or distilling spirits. Best independent bottler, self-explanatory. Those indies out there that are bringing us the signatory, the example of the Glenlivet that Ralfy highlighted earlier, the people that are bringing a different take on the official bottlings, the official releases. We've also got something, Ralfy touched on the idea, a lot of these distilleries are smaller and just starting out, and there's a lot of that happening right now, and they need somebody to be engaging with their products and talking about them. So we've put a category in here for the best new distiller. That's any new product that's been released in the previous 12 months. Then the best world whisky, that can literally be anything. It can be anything from anywhere, any world whisky, anything that is not Scotch, because we've got a separate category. It is the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, so it has to have its own category, of course. And finally, it'll be the best Scotch single malt whisky. There's lots more to read about the process, about how we're going to run this. I don't go into details on everything, but you can understand a heck of a lot more by going to oswa.co.uk. And you'll also see that there will be social media feeds as well coming. There's already an Instagram feed, which is Online Scotch WA, Online Scotch WA at Instagram, and the exact same on Twitter, with a Facebook page to follow. We're serious about this, aren't we, Ralfy?
Totally, because the online collective community is growing up. We already have our own singular influence, and we're bringing it together in a transparent way where we are connecting directly with the people who make our whiskey, and we're keeping it positive. We're saying, if you win an award here, we're telling you, the customers, the money spenders, you're getting it right. Other distilleries will notice this. They'll clock the sales, and then they too will want to get it right.
This is about celebrating the best quality, value, and availability in whiskey, exactly. Celebrating the ones that are getting it right, making a noise about the ones that are getting it right. And as an online united whiskey community, guess what? We seem to be, if Ralfy talks about Arran, if I talk about Glencadam, everybody is coming back and saying, I know I've been enjoying it too.
Yeah.
As Ralfy touched upon earlier in the stream tonight, there is no greater knowledge than what exists in our audiences, our communities watching.
Yeah.
Individually and as a combined, it's stunning to see how much knowledge is out there. If we can some way leverage that and celebrate the whiskies that are bringing the best pleasure to them, the best engagement, the best prices and quality, then that will be a good exercise. And that's the intention. It's very well intended.
Yeah.
I hope we can pull it off, Ralfy.
Of course we will, because the Oswas are that leverage. It's a practical, we're keeping it simple, we're keeping it sensible, and we're thoroughly enjoying this. We're very excited to see where this goes.
Superb. Chris Witham is asking what you're drinking, Ralfy. Tell him what you're having and what's in your pint glass there.
Well, sir.
A wee Guinness. A wee Diageo product. There you go.
It's not for the alcohol, people. It's for the vitamins.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that we've finally got it out there. All the channels are working away in the background right now. I've already got 2/3, 3/4 of the responses back. They've given their nominations for all of these 8 categories. It'll then go out to a vote amongst the channels to vote amongst themselves. They can't vote for their own selections, of course. So that is going to refine it. That's going to bring the cream to the top. That's going to bring the ones that people are really behind, because people will spot each other's nominations, consider it, and compete for votes within the collaborating channels. That will then give us a defined list of nominees that goes out to public voting. We're aiming for mid-September. I'm hedging my bets a wee bit. It might be later in September, but I don't see why it can't happen for mid-September. Then in September and October, the public get to vote on the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, and your votes are what matters from there on in. Ralfy and I will be there to filter out nonsense that is anybody that's being silly or spamming or things that are invalid or duplicated, things like that. The final say is yes with Ralfy and myself in order to maintain the integrity here. But we have absolute trust in our collaborating channels, and we can see that coming through in the things that they're nominating. It's good stuff that's been nominated. Yeah. Once we know what the results are, Ralfy and I, COVID dependent, of course, plan to get together in an environment such as this and do a wee weekend live stream and stand up and announce what these 8 whiskies are together. And maybe at that moment, Ralfy, if we've succeeded, you and I will be able to open something nice together. I've got some ideas and enjoy a good celebratory dram together. That is our rough plan from here on in.
You mentioned a rough plan. We actually have a tangible mission statement. And this is documented now. And furthermore, the recipients, the winners of the award, they won't receive a fancy trophy. What they will receive is a very presentable, practical certificate, which will be posted out by Roy and myself, and it will be signed by Roy and myself on behalf of the online whisky community, and they can hang it up in the front of the distillery, in the still room, in the shop, in the toilet. It doesn't matter. They can show it wherever they want to, that they got the gold stamp of approval from the Oswas, representing the online community collectively on behalf of whisky customers.
And let me say to everyone that's watching now, if you have an opinion or a feeling or a thought on this, please comment underneath. This is flying past so fast in the chat tonight. I'm going to pull it back over to this main window that I was sharing. so that I can keep up with the chat a bit better. But it's going so quickly that it's going to be difficult for me to pick up on the feeling. But what I have seen is that generally a very, very positive feedback so far. People genuinely interested and excited about it. But leave your comments under the video. Let us know what your feedback is. Any questions that you have, you might be able to answer by going to oswa.co.uk, oswa.co.uk, and see, have a wee look at the website there. The website will mature over the coming weeks as things develop, and there'll be more announcements and things on there. So you can subscribe also to the Twitter feed and also the Instagram feed as well, which is Online Scotch WA on both of those. I'm excited, Ralfy. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. We've discussed this a lot in conference calls between the two of us.
A lot.
And over the last few months, we've looked at the practicality of it, but importantly, for me, it's the timing. There is still this attitude within the industry that it's the mass consumer that's of primary importance, and that the educated, self-educated, articulate, quality-aware customer is maybe not so important. But now is the time for us to flex a little bit of malt muscle here and just show the industry that we're very much aware of rewarding the positivity and acknowledging collectively those businesses out there run commercially who are giving us the product that we are looking to buy.
And I also think one of the things that makes me so proud and so happy and so, you know, just feel privileged to be part of this thing is that when you consider the collaboration that's involved in here, that we've gone out to and unanimously had a positive response from all these other established commentators. Now, I appreciate there are going to be channels that I have missed, that Ralfy has missed, that the other contributing channels have not suggested or put forward. We will get to you. This is not limited to those channels.
Mm-hmm.
This is not only limited to YouTube. If there's other platforms out there, and Instagram, bloggers, other people that are saying, you know what, Roy, I'm part of this online community. Can we participate in this? Absolutely, you can. Much in the same way that we're doing it with others. I'm not suggesting that it's infinite. It could get difficult to administrate, but there is lots of room for more and more of it to happen going forward. Glenn Henderson is saying you should add a category, most improved distillery, for the distillery that improves most. You know what, Glenn? I agree. And it was so difficult for us to find a simple setup or structure for us to launch this thing, because it's very, very easy to go best rye, best Highland whiskey, best Lowland whiskey, and just you start to get really, really overly granular and complex. So Ralph and I have worked together to be inclusive, to try and find a category for everything, to not make it all about Scotch, to make it about celebrating whiskey, because Ralph and I both agree nothing guarantees better Scotch than better competition, better world whiskies. Yeah. And if we're always on the lookout for better whiskey experiences, and the more that we can include that, the better. And you know what? Being from the Scotch community means that it leaves room for people who are fans of Japanese whiskey to do the Japanese awards, or bourbon whiskey to do the bourbon whiskey awards. Absolutely. And they can do their own thing and structure it the way that they want to do. And we in no way we are just saying from the Scotch community, these are our awards.
Absolutely.
Please
recommend that message.
Please go and read the website. Let me know any questions that you might have. Please try and keep it in the comments below, because if you use it in the comments below, we have a way of being able to answer each other's comments, and we work as a community, and it's less work for me and Ralfy to come back and answer everybody. Ralfy, I know that you'll go in and jump in and try and answer a few questions as well under the video, if anybody's got any questions. Ralfy, it's very late. Are you able to stay just a few minutes longer for the wee bit of quiz?
Oh, not for the vPub quiz. Oh my goodness. You're not going to put me through that too as well, are you?
I'm going to have to ask. It's always an option for my esteemed VIP guests that step behind the bar. They don't need to stay for the quiz. It's always optional. But I've got a wee lassie, Shayla, in the background that's been waiting ever so patiently because she said that she would be here and she'd stay for the quiz. And I'm excited to bring her back in as well.
Wonderful.
Are you able to stay?
Of course I can. I couldn't let you down. It's going to be a disaster for me, but I don't care because I'm a bit shameless about it. If I get it wrong, I get it wrong.
That's okay. That's exactly the way I feel. I got a 4 out of 10 on one of Shayla's quizzes over summer. And
What were you that bad?
I never even made a pass mark, but it was so bad that the audience or the live chat that night decided, Shayla, I'm bringing you in now. They decided that a pass mark for that particular quiz was 3 out of 10, and that was not the Menno quiz, right?
That's the standard now.
Yeah. Shayla, thank you for your patience and for sitting in the background. I know you would have been watching and hanging out anyway.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Yeah, no worries.
Listen, what did you think about that announcement? An anticlimax, or do you think it's interesting?
Oh, I'm so excited. When I first got the email, I was just like, how did we not think of this sooner? No, this is great. I'm so excited. And I'm excited to see how it evolves and how it changes the whiskey landscape. You know, how like Ralfy was saying, just that maybe they think about us a little bit more and are a little bit more thoughtful about their, presentations of whiskeys. And hopefully it kind of changes the industry a little bit year by year. So I'm really excited.
We often represent not just their own opinions and takes on things, but we often represent our entire community feedback as well. Shayla and I are going to raise a wee glass to you, Ralfy. We're going to raise a wee glass to say thank you for your time served at the helm and the coalface. We know it's been hard for you out there from somewhere in the Irish Sea. It's not always easy to do this thing when you're doing it on your own.
I got to tell you, Roy, it's been so difficult, so hard. Every week, I struggle to take the steel off the cork of the bottle and pour yet another wee dram, and then spend all that time trying to figure out, am I really liking it, or am I just liking it?
I love the humility. Listen, man, we're trying to pay you a compliment and say thank you.
You're very well. Thanks,
You've
folks.
been doing it for 12 years now, Ralfy.
Oh my goodness, is it that long? I tell you what.
Listen, I know you're a Scot. It's difficult for you to take a compliment.
Yes, it is actually.
Let me say it. Because you have let us enjoy a format that did not exist 12 years ago. Because of your consistency, because of your output, because of your time-served opinions, because you've been trying to push for integrity, given us a concept of we don't need to take sponsorships. We don't need to be paid and have free gifts and exchanges and contracts. The Oswas are founded on all of those values. Ralfy and I are paying for this because our community allows us to. It's community funded.
This is important.
Ralfy was the torchbearer for that model.
Yeah. And
Ralfy,
I think
thank you for the idea. Thank you for having the trust in all your peer channels. And thank you for stepping up tonight and standing alongside me and Shayla to announce it and bring it out there.
Wonderful. Happy to be involved. And thank you to all the people on the internet who view our content, add to our AdSense, and importantly to our Patreon pals, because they have provided us the incentive and the support in the background that contributes towards moving things on as we are doing right now. And yet I can remember back in 2009 when we're still in dial-up. Yes.
Yeah.
And
24 hours to upload your content to YouTube.
Yeah. That's about right, yes.
Yeah,
and it's amazing how much has changed in those 11 years. It seems a long time ago, but it's just yesterday. And by the way, it's nothing compared to tomorrow.
That is fantastic and wise. Ralfy, I'll raise this glass. Sláinte mhath and thank you. Cheers.
Sláinte.
Now we get to put you through the ringer, Shayla, for your summer vPubs. Now I need to get some admins working here because we've got.
I got him already.
Did you?
Yeah, it might take a second to show up, but yeah, I got him as soon as they posted.
I've asked Sugar Kitty if it's possible for some moderation to happen from there too. So.
Oh, it looks like Steve got it too, so should be good.
If Steve is in, then we're good.
Yeah.
They seem to be excited when Ralfy's around. It's a busier vPub, so we're attracting the uglier traffic too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get going. Let's do the wee screen share here.
Oh dear.
No, you'll be fine. Listen, I have to be very, very honest and say, when I was putting the quiz together tonight, I was mindful. I tried my best to make a quiz that could bring us back on the rails a bit. I think that because we're becoming more and more knowledgeable as time goes on, the quizzes have followed that. The quiz at the end has become tougher and tougher. But it's nice to celebrate a 10 out of 10. Let's see if we can achieve that tonight. I'll bring this in. I'll wish everybody the best of luck with the quiz. It is multiple choice. Please stay. You only need to share your score if you want to. It's fully optional. You've got a chance, a 33% chance of getting any of them right, even if you're fully guessing. And the questions are designed to help you think about certain things too, even the banana skins and the ass hats. Good luck, Shayla. Good luck, Ralfy. Thanks for hanging around for so long, both of you. Question 1. Oh, there isn't a doc rating tonight. I do apologise. I didn't send it to my friend Doc. So if he's still in, he'll be playing along. Question 1. Which of these Speyside whiskies label themselves today as Highland? Which of these label themselves as Highland despite being a Speysider? A. Glenmurray, B. Macallan, C. Benriach. One of them, on the label, it says Highland single malt Scotch whisky. The other two, it says Speyside single malt Scotch whisky. And because Speyside is in the Highlands, all of the distilleries within Speyside have the ability to do so if they wish. Interestingly, Glenfarclas, it's not an option tonight, but if you see here, Glenfarclas also type Highland on the label. Okay. Have you got it on a piece of paper? Ralfy knows the drill. Look at that.
What a pro.
Yes, I can see B for Ralfy. Shayla? Absolutely an easy one to get started. The lounge absolutely kicked out. The part 2, Macallan do indeed label themselves as a Highland. Question 2, wee bit of a banana skin, but not too much. Which typically 43% ABV distillery. This is somebody that typically puts out at 43%. They could do better. But they've recently rebranded and introduced an interesting batch strength 15-year-old at 50% ABV, and they're also putting on the label unchill filtered. Which Speyside distillery have done that? Is it A, Ben Romack, B, Glen Grant, C, Glengoyne?
Oof. I don't know this one.
I do.
Shocker.
And I'm not telling you.
Come on.
No chance.
Now, this was a release that was originally available in the US. It wasn't available to us here, but they've now launched it globally and brought it on as part of their core range.
Can I give Shayla a clue?
Well, there is a banana skin here, Ralfy. I hope you've not. Okay. Okay.
The right answer is a single malt.
That's not much of a clue.
The generosity of the clues is unfathomable.
Oh dear.
Okay, are you going to have to guess then, Shayla?
Yeah.
You're going to kick yourself, Shayla. The banana skin is there. Where is Glengoyne?
Oh shit.
It's a Highlander. Grant has released, and very interesting, 59 pounds of that order. A 15-year-old at 50% ABV, and it's very pale in colour too. I am curious. I've yet to try it.
Me too.
That's what it looks like. Ralfy with his finger on the pulse, getting it absolutely right. There is a direct train route from London Euston, stopping at which of these distilleries?
Oh my goodness.
You can jump on the train at London Euston and you can get off at either A, Dalhousie, B, Dalmore, C, Dalwhinnie.
Oh, goodness. You said this was going to be easy, Roy.
Sorry, Shayla.
No worries.
I know, but that's, you know what, you now appreciate that the questions that you think will be quite easy turn out to be, I appreciate this would be tricky, but if you consider, yes, I don't want to give it away. There is a direct train route, and literally you jump on at London Euston, you stay in the same seat for 10 hours.
Okay.
You can step off at this station and walk 5 minutes to this distillery. Give us your guess, Shayla.
Nah, shite. Okay. I'll guess A. I don't know.
Dalhousie. Ralfy thinks it's Dalwhinnie. Dalwhinnie Station is 5 minutes from Dalwhinnie Distillery.
Okay.
Quite incredible. You can jump on there. It costs you about 200 quid, but it might be a nice wee. If you do that, have a rental car waiting at Dalwhinnie so you can do a bit of a tour or at least have accommodation there. Question 4. Which of these island distilleries was not founded in 1798? Was not founded in 1798. 2 of these were A, Jura, B, Tobermory, or C, Highland Park. All I can do is ask you to consider the bottling, the embossed glass, the labelling, they emblazon the years all over their bottles normally. But there's 3 islands on the topic of the regions tonight. One of them is a wee bit newer. Shayla, were you guessing again?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm guessing A. I don't know. The other one seems like they'd be older. I feel like I remember seeing Tobermory or Lechik with that year, so.
Black Fen is checking his bottle of Lechik.
There you go.
Jura, absolutely right, Shayla. Well done.
Yay.
1810 for Jura, whereas Highland Park and coincidentally, Tobermory were both 1798, 18th century distilleries.
2 for 4. I'm just smashing it.
Number 5, a rather attractive, beautiful, but somehow modern looking distillery. I have a feeling that both of those Doig's ventilators, those pagoda roofs, will be ornamental, although I'm not sure. The one on the left could be functional. Let's see. Are we looking at Ardnamurchan, up in the Ardnamurchan Peninsula? Are we looking at Nicknean, just south of there? Or are we looking at Lag, on the south of Arran? Which distillery are we looking at here? A, Ardnamurchan, B, Nicknean, or C, Lag?
Okay, I think I know this one.
Now, the angle, I could have taken it, I could have used a picture that was taken at a kinder angle, but I deliberately chose this angle.
You did. You can see that to cause a little bit of ambiguity.
Yes. What do you think, Ralfy? What are we looking at?
Lag.
Oh, okay. I'm guessing wrong, probably.
No, you've got one over on Ralfy, Shayla.
Damn.
I managed to catch you out by Lag is a very kind of swoopy, sloping, but very modern looking building. I managed to catch you out because there's the still house at Ardnamurchan has the big kind of glass wall there, and that's just out of shot on the right hand side there. So we are looking at Ardnamurchan. Going to Ardnamurchan on the 16th of September, hoping to be able to pull off a live broadcast from there. I need to get my mic fixed. I apologise to everybody for the terrible audio tonight. Question 6. Which of these Highland distilleries lies directly adjacent to a graveyard? Famously, literally, you can have a wee walk around a graveyard as you visit this distillery. Which of these Highland distilleries that lies directly adjacent to a graveyard? Is it A, Glencadam, B, Deanston, or C, Glengoyne? Johan Lundberg is passing on that one. Everyone is saying 2 lucky guesses to give him a 5 out of 5. Well done, everyone. Well done, Chris. Fantastic. Marku is on a 4 out of 5. Superb. Fraser Thistle thinks that this is Glencadam. What say, Ralfy? What do you think?
Glencadam.
Both of you think that Glencadam lies adjacent to a graveyard.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. Anybody that watched the Glencadam, which was a really nice, one of my favourite guests to have on recently, was the Glencadam live stream with Ian Forteeth. It was fantastic, and he showed us some images, and you could see the graveyard there in the background. Glencadam is exactly right. Well done, Ralfy and Shayla. Question 7. What did I point out about Eagle Rare in the last recycled review? And Ralfy, I apologise because I don't know if you've caught it.
No.
Recycled review went out yesterday. What did I specifically point out about the Eagle Rare bourbon in that review? Did I make note of A, it's 50% ABV, B, it's 10-year age statement, or C, it's expensive packaging? What did I make note of?
I'll give you a hint, Ralfy.
No need. I've already out. I'm going to take a punt in this one. I'm going to wing it.
What would your clue have been, Shayla?
Oh, I was gonna say it's one of these three because he gave me so much help on the last one.
Oh, oh!
Of quiz at the end, table tennis stuff. Okay, give me your answers when you're ready. I haven't seen it yet, says Greg. It wasn't Glenn going 25 in the middle of the night. Both think it's the 10-year age statement. Absolutely right. Eagle Rare has a 10-year age statement on the back label. A lot of Scotch producers could take a bit of inspiration from that, I think. Question 8. In October 2018, Ralfy praised a newly arrived 4-year-old English malt whiskey.
Thanks for the question.
Ralfy, if you get this wrong, right?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Question 8. In October 2018, Ralfy praised a newly arrived 4-year-old English malt whiskey. What was it? Was it A, Cotswolds, B, Bimber, or C, Spirit of Yorkshire? I think that since Ralfy reviewed this, it's only got better.
Yeah, I would agree.
Shayla, it looks like you might be chewing your lip a wee bit guessing this one.
I feel like it might be A or B, but I don't know. I feel like either of those are good ones that he would do, but I don't know. And maybe it's C. I have no idea.
Ralfy,
okay, I'm gonna guess. Oh,
well guessed. Well done.
Congratulations. Yeah.
You reviewed the 4-year-old. You gave it a very good score of about 86, I think, and praised it, and you were excited about the future. I'm on my 3rd bottle now of their Odyssey, and it seems to be more enjoyable each time. Well done, Cotswolds. Less than 35, or let's say less than £40. Natural presentation as well. And although it doesn't have an age statement, it has a vintage. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Question 9. The highest distillery in Scotland is said to be, it's in here as banana skin, it's in here to say it's said to be, because I know that some marketing departments do suggest that their distillery is the highest in Scotland, but this one is actually, by Ordnance Survey, the highest. A, Tomintoul, B, Breval, C, Dalwhinnie.
Right, now just to confirm, Roy, the question is what is perceived to be the highest distillery or what is actually the highest distillery according to GPS Global Satellite Navigation System?
Yes, the latter. Absolutely the latter. The distillery that is built at the highest altitude.
So it's either B or C, right? Oh, goodness. The Dalwhinnie has that climatological station, so I feel like it might be them, but it's probably not. Okay, I'll just guess B. I don't know.
B, Ralfy, B.
Sweet.
Bang. Brave Al, well done. For many people, they talk about Dalwhinnie being the highest, and it's because there was some genuine marketing material from Dalwhinnie that stated that. Not that I've seen it, but I hear anecdotally that was the case. Tomintoul is the highest town or village or whatever it may be, but not distillery. Brave Al is actually the highest altitude distillery. Let's see what the chat is doing. Let's see how the scores are doing in the chat. Wow, I'm very, very grateful to see such high scores tonight. The Stu Baby's gone for B, so you got that one right. IC86 is on 8, One Glassman Warner on 9 out of 9, saying, oh my God. Graham Young on 9 out of 9. Andrew Butler, Molasses on 8, Malt Minion on 9. Silverlock Whisky. See how knowledgeable these people are. 9 out of 9 for Silverlock. Steve Atkins, 9 out of 9. As well as Thomas Elmer, Robert Bruce, Desi Vleeland, Che Francis. Fantastic guys. Gino Kimo, Jimmy Legg, well done. And so many more just as the chat jumps. You're all doing very, very well. We're going to be celebrating some 10 out of 10s tonight, I hope. Here comes the ass hat. Brace yourself. There's always an ass hat. Awkward, difficult, horrible question at the end. How many of Scotland's 790 islands has an active malt distillery? Now, you haven't seen half of it yet. Ralfy's mentally counting it in his head. Look, he's counting. The same number as the Inverhouse distillery count, Pernod Ricard distillery count, Beam & Grant's distillery count.
Oh.
So if you count how many Inverhouse distilleries there are, how many is that? Does it match how many islands have an active malt distillery? Same for Pernod Ricard's distillery count. I gave that away a wee bit earlier in the stream tonight. I said how many they had. And then if you take Beam and Grant's distilleries and add them together, malt distilleries I'm talking about, of course, what do we have? I'm going to help everyone.
No help. No help. Let everybody suffer.
Ralfy feels confident.
Okay.
Orkney, Lewis, Harris, Skye, Rassie, Mull, Jura, Islay, Arran.
Okay, so
When you're ready, Shayla.
all right, maybe this.
Stevie is saying, after this question, I may need to boycott the channel just on GP having stopped the quiz after question 1. Ralfy is going for Pernod Ricard distillery count. Shayla is going for...
Same.
The ass hat caught you both out. It's 9 Beam and Grants together. Beam, Suntory and Grants, 4 and 5 between the two of them. 9 islands have active malt distilleries on them. So I'm going to say now that once I stop the share. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Remove. There we go. And pull you back in. I'm going to say that I hoped that was a relatively easy. Ralfy, I counted you in at 8 out of 10, which is a fantastic score. And Shayla?
7 out of 10.
Fantastic. Well
so,
done. Well
much
done.
better than mine. Much better than my quizzes. Thanks, Roy.
Alistair McPhail, good to see you in, Alistair. He's celebrating 10 out of 10 tonight. Got to Beach. JG also. 9 out of 10 for Desi Leland. Oh no, the ass hat caught you out, Desi. I'm sorry. 9 out of 10 for Yash Desai. He's celebrating best score. Jens Roger Christofferson is celebrating as well. 10 out of 10 for Silverloch Whisky Reviews. Apologies. Fantastic. Jean de la Cuisine is still very proud of his 9 out of 10. Absolutely, you should be. Orange Rule on a 10. Let's see if we can catch any more 10s. Alistair McPhail mentioned it. Oh, there's lots of people. Chris Witham is celebrating an 11 out of 11. Well done to you, Chris. Fantastic. Silverloch is saying, hats off to the Ralfy Bunnet for a 10 out of 10. Absolutely. I hope that's made your night a wee bit as well. Fantastic. Ebhead, he's happy on his 7 out of 10. And Stewie Baby is saying, not pish. Absolutely, Stewie Baby. Fantastic stuff. Listen, I apologise to everybody tonight for a wee bit of loss of audio on my side. I don't know what's going on with my mic. I'll have it fixed for next week in some way or other. But despite the audio issues, I've had a wonderful night. Shayla, thank you so much for keeping the continuity going over summer, and thanks for hanging out in the background and being just such a nice persona to have around in the Whiskyscape, honestly. Ralfy, thank you, as I said at length earlier, for everything that you do. Thanks for having the confidence in us as well. Absolutely. I'll raise this wee glass to you both and ask you to please stay backstage to raise a wee glass offline if you've got the time.
Yeah.
And I'll say thank you very, very much. Slanchava to you both. Thank you for having it with me.
Slanch.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I know I'm just going to get a whole host of folk commenting on about how amazing it is to see Ralfy in here. Please, you can say it in the live chat, say it in the comments under the video as well. I'll encourage Ralfy to come in and answer any questions down there too, especially when it comes to questions about the Oswas or the awards themselves or whatever it may be. Jimmy Legg is saying sound was only briefly an issue. I still think it'll be a wee bit tinny and echoey, but I'm fussy these days, Jimmy. Hell's Wid is in saying, fabulous vPub, Roy. Welcome back. Thanks to your 2 super guests. See you again soon. Jean de la Cuisine is saying, this was awesome stream to be back. Thank you so much. I am privileged to be able to have somebody like Ralfy step forward and feel comfortable in this environment. And that's thanks to you. Thank you all so much. Alistair McPhail's bought me a dram, saying Aquavite, great evening and welcome back. Thank you, Alistair. Thank you so much. I know you're in UK time, and I hope you're enjoying being back on this island. Ebhead is saying, awesome, fantastic vPub announcement. Thank you, Roy, Ralfy, and Shayla. Thank you so much, Rolf. Thank you, buddy. Chris Pollock is saying, great vPub. Desi Valienda is saying, had a big grin on my face all night tonight. What a fabulous kickoff. Thank you, Ralfy and Roy. Simon Ray is saying, back with a bang. Thank you both so much. Too Slow, Rob. Good to see you. And he's saying, thanks, Roy. Tom Cascarami, a fantastic evening. Sheila was great over the last few weeks too. Looking forward to the awards. Jimmy Legg bought me a dram to say, what a great night, topped off by the Jimmy. It's Jimmy getting a 10 on the quiz. Wonderful stuff, Jimmy. I can't promise that every week, but I'm glad you managed to bag it tonight. Tommy Elmer is saying it's a pleasure and I always hope to see you Sunday. Yes, Sunday for a lock-in or a week on Sunday. I'll manage both of them. Sunday's still a wee bit tentative, but I think I might be able to pull it off. That's for patrons only. The lock-ins are for patrons only. But it'd be a pleasure to see you there, Tom, if you can make it. Ronald is saying, good to see you, Ronald is saying, Roy and Ralfy, thanks for this great vPub. Have a good night, everyone, and sleep well. Oh, Johan Lundberg is saying, night all, and bought me a wee dram. Thank you very, very much, Johan. Thank you so much. And Yash is saying, as epic as I expected it to be. Time for a dram. Gregor is saying, great return, Aquavite. I'm ready for fall. Now you've returned. Bring on the drams. What a wonderful, wonderful sentiment, Gregor. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody. So many of you in, still 274, right at the dying breath. It's going to come in at less than 3 hours, which is less time than the last time I had live streamed with Ralfy. It would be so easy for us to do an 8-hour session, honestly speaking. Great fun. I loved being here. I loved having Ralfy, and I loved having the support from Shayla as well, especially over the summer vPubs. Very privileged to be part of this whole thing. Sometimes I have to pinch myself and say, really, is this happening? It's wonderful. And I hope that you're enjoying it too. I'm going to raise this glass. I'm going to tell you all that you're very dearly loved, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you back for another vPub next week. In the meantime, look after yourselves. Slàinte everyone, and thank you all so much. Cheers.